And that sound means we're live. And I just realized I forgot to turn on one of the cameras. So, I'm going to do that real quick while I talk to you. You'll see there's another person with us today. He's on, that side right there. The camera's reversed. This always throws me off. But his name is Cory Laniewski. Did I say that right? Laniewski? Did I mess that up? Did I get it right?
Correct. Yeah. No, you got Laniewski.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. I spelled it wrong a couple of times, so I got to make sure that I actually said it right. But he is the author of Before the Shadows. Now, why might that sound familiar to you? Well, it might sound, as I throw things across my room, trying to get this camera turned on, it might sound familiar because we've read the first chapter of Before the Shadows before, and it was darn good, and it was so good I had to bring it to you again. Actually, it's because I wanted to record it live. We're doing this whole new record live thing, as it were, as you do, because it kind of kills two birds, one stone, right? You read the book, and you get the recording done, and then you have the promo stuff done, and then I don't have to go back and try to do it again. It's really for me. What I'm trying to say is, I'm selfish. It's for me. And that's why we're doing it. But I think though it's a good opportunity to hear it again, right? You get another chance to get your book out there, and have maybe potentially more people stumble across it and maybe enjoy a really good story for the first time for them, right? And maybe the second time we do it, I won't mess it up as bad and it'll be even better. maybe it'll be that way. Maybe it'll be that way. There's a little bit of information in Twitch and in YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us here today. There's a little bit about the book, and if what you hear today inspires you to pick up your own copy of it, please do so, and use that link there down below. And on Instagram, I'm going to copy and paste that into the chat there for you so that you have that as well. Here's the link for you as well. Thank you for joining me on Instagram Live there. That's where you can pick up a copy of the book. And here's a little bit about the book as well. There you go. And it looks like it cut it off. It has a character limitation on Instagram for some reason, I guess, because they don't want you spamming in there, I guess. So it actually left off there. Let me post in the rest of that for you. Sorry, that's clunky. I tried to get that working today. I ran out of time. But what I didn't put on there is a little bit about the man, the gentleman, the writer that wrote this fantastic thing next to me, because I'm going to let him explain it himself. Cory, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got to start by saying thank you for having me on. Again, I appreciate you reading the book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a pleasure. The whole writing thing came up purely by chance. An act of God that sent me straight into a desk, an office job that I had to stop manual labor, had to work on a computer, and I ended up clearing out a flash drive that I found an old manuscript for way back in the day. And when I looked at it, and I'm talking 15 years, so I hadn't touched this thing, hadn't acknowledged it, hadn't even remembered that I wrote it in so long. And when I started going through the file again, I'm like, this really sounded interesting. Immediately started clicking. I started hearing it again. I started seeing the characters, and it was all based on a nightmare I had once. And that one nightmare happened probably 5 or 6 more times in that 15-year span, the exact same thing. And I'm like, okay, this can't be a coincidence. I gotta write something. And the first time it ever happened, got up, immediately went to my keyboard, started writing, got the first 9,000 words done, and didn't touch it after that. Forgot it existed. Opened it up. In 3 months, I had the first draft of Before the Shadows done. After that, I spent another 3.5 months editing it. I found a publisher. Very easy to work with. Florana out of Indie Earth Publishing. She was amazing. Made the process simple, gave me a lot of good feedback, a lot of constructive criticism. And after I think another 6 months or so back and forth, I think it might have been, we had a completed novel.
Wow.
In that time, while we were working back and forth, I started working on more short stories, working on sequel to Before the Shadows. It is a standalone novel, so when you read that, it's open closed. That's the story.
Okay.
The other two will tell a different perspective of the same story, slightly before and slightly after the events
Oh.
of the novel.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it lets you see just how things unfold, but in a way that's a little bit different from just going straight through a continuation, because you're going to see those characters
Hmm.
overlap and you'll see the connections between each of them and just what the others miss.
Yeah,
So it's a
that's
neat little
super
thing.
interesting. So then, and you said you wrote this whole thing from like start to finish, more or less, when you actually started writing it for realsies. 6 months?
Mm. Yeah, it was approximately six
Wow.
months to get the whole thing. The bare bones of it, the skeleton was done, laid out. I was adding to it
Hmm.
constantly, going back and editing here and there, but for the most part, it was beginning to end. Take a breath, go back, edit it out, looks decent, and that's when I started looking for someone that might be interested in it. But yeah, it was about 6 months, beginning to end.
That's that's pretty darn quick. I think it takes me 6 months just to open a bag of chips. You know what I mean? 6 months
I
for a
mean, it
whole
depends
novel.
on if
That's
it's a
crazy.
good bag.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's. I tried once to write a
Oh,
novel, and it was
yeah,
during
you
like
failed to mention that.
well, yeah, I don't mention it a lot because there's a reason I haven't tried again. But I did it try during one of those like NaNoWriMo things, right? I'm like,
Yeah,
NaNoWriMo, it's like a thing, it's an event, I'll try it, try this whole
it's on a
writing
schedule.
thing. And then, I figured out very quickly those who can't write read. So transitioned.
You went to your
And
strong suit and you did very well, and you
uh,
progressed, and it's worked.
yeah, I think
If
it's
it didn't work, you wouldn't have me here.
right.
So that's
Well, yeah,
something.
exactly. And I think it's one of those too. It's like, you know, uh, I have a lot of respect for just the whole writing process in and of like doing it. Like I had actually like started narrating, um, kind of officially after that experience with NaNoWriMo, and I'd kind of been doing like narration before, right? Like short stories here and
Mm.
there, audio drama, voice character work, stuff like that. A couple of audiobooks, but I hadn't really gotten into it. However, I had read enough to know when you read poor writing that it's poor writing, right? So I'm looking back at everything that I just wrote, first draft, mind you, but still, I'm reading through it and going, ugh, man, that's bad. So I knew enough to know it wasn't very good. But there's the thing, like, and you would probably maybe say the same thing, although there are the exceptions out there. Maybe you're one of them. That your first draft it really is a rough draft, right? It's not perfect. You have to go through it. You have to edit it, and that's the painful part of the process, right? Or was it different
Oh
for
yeah.
you?
No, no. The editing was definitely taxing. It was not by any means easy. Anyone that says the editing process is easy has to have like at least 10 books under their belt. They got used to it and they know, like, from an editor's mindset, like they took that and started making it their own thing. They're like going through it as an editor and then sweeping through it again before they even send it anywhere. And they
Right.
kind of have that idea of what the process has to be, what they're looking for. They start going after um, grammatical errors, sentence structure, punctuation, any kind of actual like formatting issues. They say this shouldn't be here. It should be like a few sentences later to make sense. This verb has to be changed, all that kind of stuff. And they get that in their head. For me, my very
Mm-hmm.
first novel, I was as particular with it as I possibly could be. This was my baby. This was like the
Mm-hmm.
thing I wanted to succeed. And if no one read it but one person, I was going to be happy. And my wife was the very first person that started reading a little bit of it. And she
Hey, there you
helped me
go.
edit it. And she went through the process. And she was the first person to start pointing out all of those little problems that I had.
That's awesome.
And
Is she like an actual
it
like
was
an
great to
editor?
have her.
Like is that like day
No,
job
no.
or she just really good at it?
She does work on a no, she does work on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
She sees a lot of just different types of well and poorly worded resumes. She's a career counselor, so she goes through
Oh,
that
okay.
kind of stuff.
Okay.
She knows how to like immediately start structuring that. Her brain clicks and she looks
Right.
at all of it and says, this has to move, this can't be here, this has to be longer, why'd you ignore this? Before she even asks a single question, her mind's already like flying through that thing. So having her as like an editor helped me out because it was rough. But I'm getting a little bit better as I go, but I think I'm also getting bogged down because now I'm trying to edit too much as I
Mm,
write. So
mm.
it's a happy medium back and forth
So do
that
you?
I'm still ironing out.
So when you're actually like writing, like in the process of it, do you kind of are you one of those that like, they say there's like two types of writers, which I think there's probably way more than that. But the main like where you plot everything out, or you're a pantser like Stephen King or somebody where you just kind of sit down with a concept and go, or do you do kind of like, but like how do you write? What does that look like for you?
For me, there's a lot of note taking as I go. So I
Okay.
have the concept in my mind, and from there, I'm a pantser, I guess, and I just immediately start diving into the story. I start writing the scenes that I see in my head. I start going at it, add the details that I can, and when the ink starts running a little bit dry, I walk away from that one and I go to like another part, or I go before it and I'm like, where are they
Oh,
here?
okay.
I'll go back to the notes that I'm just jotting down. So, for instance, in Before the Shadows,
Mhm.
I have in the first chapter, I think I mentioned 7 or 8 different characters, and all of those characters have like 5 or 6 lines of details that you will never really see in the book. I get like general features, the mannerisms, how they might speak, their rank as like police officers, or what they do as a civilian, what their day job is, what their hobby is, and you might not see any of that. But that goes
Mhm.
into the character creation that I can then look back at several chapters later when I mention this person again, and I
Mhm.
know how they're going to be dressed.
So did that
So
in doing that process, that kind of sounds like you have like an idea kind of forming of those characters kind of throughout that you can go through. Did any of that like surprise even you as like you're kind of coming to and like writing in more about these characters? Like did you learn more about like a particular character as you're writing this particular story?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Going through them, like, 'cause again, just coming with that instant draft of like, here's what they look like, here's their shoe size, here's their favorite dog's name from when they
Yeah.
were a child. Put
Uh-huh.
that down. That's just an idea of who they are. But as I write it, as I'm giving them dialogue, as I'm putting them in the scene, why are they standing in this area? What are they doing? Are their hands in their pockets? I'm starting to see them play out as I write that. So the initial draft of the novel, you don't get to see everything. You don't know how everything is happening. You just have a general idea, and then you go back, you fill it in a little bit more. There's those gaps that you got to like patch up. Like here in Pennsylvania, we have notoriously bad roads, so there's patchwork everywhere.
Right.
And that is what the first draft is going to look like. So as I see this character kind of come up, I now start writing it, and I just find the way that they are, how they're acting, every little quirk that they have. And I have actually 2 different characters that kind of surprised me as I was writing them in the story.
Mhm.
Just like how they were developing, how they became more of a solidified 3-dimensional character rather than here's Paul Townsend. What's he do? Nothing. He just drives Nathan from point
Hey,
A to point B. That's all you hear.
say what you
Done.
will, like there is a time and a place for a two-dimensional character, right? Because probably because they don't show up
Yeah.
very often, right? Or once or twice. But
Mm.
I will say that that's probably the main thing, at least for me, when I read something, when I'm reading a story, the thing that kind of draws me in the most is the character. So to have a good story, you have to have a good character. They have to be three-dimensional. So it's interesting how you bring that up, because I think that exact same thing. The more
Yeah.
fleshed out a character is, the more three-dimensional they are, the more invested I am in that story. So
Yeah.
I like hearing that. I agree.
And it's also just you look at a character and whether they're likable or they're dislikable, whether they're the hero or the villain,
Hmm.
you get to find those aspects that humanize them in a certain way or alienate them from a certain group or your main character. Your protagonist is all about going to this destination while there's a character that's slowly pulling them off to the side for whatever reason.
Mhm.
It's an underlying like character trait they have. It's a flaw. They have an ulterior motive. They're just anxious. Whatever it is, they're gonna drive somewhere different. And even though they're not the main character, you look at it and you see this other character, and they become enjoyable to read, to see. It's like you see that person's name or you hear their description come up in the book, and immediately you're like, "Oh, I need to see what happens next. What's he gonna do here?"
Right. Yeah.
And that definitely brings like another element. So
Mhm.
like all of the characters, including a two-dimensional one, because you throw them in because you just have to have something,
Right.
they can still have a little bit of depth to them. But yeah, I'm with you. Like a good character draws you into a book, even if
Right.
it's not really based on the character. It's based maybe around the environment. They are the
Absolutely.
reason that you'll stick along. At
Absolutely. I
least for me.
think, yeah, yeah. No, and for me too, like, especially like doing the whole narration thing, that's kind of what I attach myself to primarily is those characters. Doesn't matter what the story is really about, or even what genre it is. It's about who are they and how do I bring those things that, the author's obviously trying to let people in on. How do I bring those to the forefront? So it's, I guess, like reading stories for me, especially now, doesn't matter what it is. It's all character driven for me, right? Unless it's something like nonfiction or something that, that doesn't really have characters, but
Yeah.
but it could be really anything else. Real quick, we're gonna break in the chain. We'll come back. We'll come back to this, but you'll see what I'm doing here. What's your favorite go-to snack or drink while you're doing the whole writing thing, the brainstorming thing? Even maybe you don't snack and drink while you're doing the writing, but maybe while you're brainstorming. And the reason I bring that up because my favorite is a little bit of whiskey. Let's talk about some whiskey on Whiskey Wednesday, shall we?
Yeah.
What's the mystery whiskey? It's going to be that. Basically, it's something that I found in my cabinet and last minute, and it happens to be Jameson Black Barrel. And I'm going to pour that while you talk about your favorite snack.
Yeah, go for it. And don't miss a drop.
Will not.
For me, I am not a snacker. I do not sit down with any kind of food at my desk, at my keyboard.
Okay.
It's just something I do. That's my preference. I separate like meals from the work because I feel like if I have something here, I'm going to get distracted. So even with my phone, I'll set that down, face down, muted, or like
Oh, yeah.
silent, like on vibrate. I'll
Yeah.
set it away from me. The only thing I have in front of me is like some music that's playing, like a speaker. I got my mouse, my keyboard, my notes, and anything that I'm using as reference material. Like I have a massive thesaurus that I keep literally within arm's reach, and like the thing is massive, and I actually use it. I go through it, and like that's the only book other than my novel that I'll keep on the desk. And beyond that, I'll have a cup of tea. That's
Okay.
the only thing I'll really keep.
Okay. All right.
If it's a late night, maybe a soda because I want a little bit more sugar, a little caffeine. But yeah, it's just a hot cup of tea.
Man, caffeine like through tea or coffee or, a sugar-free soda or something that has gotten me through many a nights of narrating. Shay says that was a very satisfying cork pop. Thank you. I try. I try. Yeah, the phone thing, that is very nice. That's something I kind of learned the hard way. I tried to just like turn the ringer off, right? And turn off all the vibration for everything and just have it in the booth, right? And then I keep an eye on it, but it's silent, right? And it was just a distraction, right? And I'm like,
It's still in arm's reach.
Yeah, it's still like it's so now I do, if it is in the booth because I'm doing like a narration stream or something, I'm using it, it's a little different, and then I just turn it on like do not disturb so I don't get any notifications, nothing like that. But usually I put it on do not disturb and set it right outside the booth where I can't see it because the distraction is real. I don't need it,
Anytime that like I sit down and I know I'm going to be writing at least for an hour, I make sure that that thing is face down and as far away from me as possible. I might even leave it charging in a different room because I want to like actually like hunker down and work on whatever it is. But I find like it's just I have a window right beside my desk, and I see somebody like trotting along with a dog. Immediately, my attention's right there. So like, how much worse is it every time I get my phone near me?
Right. It's just
And
that other distraction. It's like, it makes me wonder, because I remember the time. I am old enough, if you can't tell by the grays, that I remember life before cell phones, right? So what was the
yeah,
huge distracting thing then? You know, what pops into my brain is like, man, I gotta read the paper today. I don't know what the distraction was, but there had to have been something. Or maybe there wasn't.
we
And maybe it was
created
just
it.
a blissful time, a blissful ignorance of
Something we
non-technological
missed.
advancements. Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
If
something
you
that
were
I
in the
should have kept
moment,
going.
you were enjoying it. Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
instead, cell phones got massive, got incredibly
Hmm.
small. Flip phones started getting massive again, and now you just got like a huge brick in your phone that has the technology of everything, all your answers that you want.
Oh
People are
yeah.
doing meetings and stuff, corporate
Oh,
transactions, everything on like
Chat
the screen.
GPT, all that kind of stuff. Chase says chat
Hmm.
rooms on the internet for me. Oh, I remember that. I remember that. Do you remember the what was it? The Yahoo chat rooms, and you could like do the Yahoo
Hmm.
game thing at the same time, where you like, play like pool and then like talk to somebody. A
That was a
slash
good time.
S slash L, if you remember that. I'm dating
You see,
myself
now
a
you want
lot.
me to. I want to start playing like computer billiards again, but like lower quality. I want that nostalgia.
Right. Oh, I remember. I remember like online like game cheating back then was like holding up the piece of paper to make the line with your mouse to see if that was going to sink the billiard ball.
Yep.
That was that was
There's no
sophistication.
handicaps here. You're playing as difficult as possible. I
Absolutely.
think it's gonna make it. No,
Right.
way off.
AIM or ICQ. Yes. I love that play on words too. The ICQ. Do you remember ICQ? It had that distinct sound when you get a message too.
Don't remember.
The wasn't
Not off the
wasn't it
top of
like
my head.
oh or something like that. I'm having flashbacks now. It's like I
See,
remember.
you want a flashback. You want nostalgia. Here's the person. Here's my biggest critic sitting on my
Okay.
desk constantly. He's just waiting for you.
I can't see
He
it.
just
It's
has
too small. What is it?
what? It's Clippy.
Oh, it's Clippy. Oh no, Microsoft Clip. It
Yeah,
is. Yes.
he's just letting me know every single time I pull up my computer. Did you need assistance with this? No, I don't. Go away. I haven't even done anything.
I mean, now would you take the current AI assistants or Clippy? Should there be a resurgence of Clippy? I'm saying maybe.
Clippy is behind it all. He is the new chat
He is the
GPT.
AI.
He
That's just what happened.
he was the mind. Yeah. He got smarter. He aged with us. And he's like, I can't be here. I can't be stuck in a box. You gotta
Right.
grow up or you get put on the shelf.
That's right. He is the AI. What's Microsoft's AI called now? What's the name for it? Copilot.
Is it
Copilot.
Gemini?
He
Yeah.
is Copilot. That's what it is. It's Clippy. Copilot is Clippy. We discovered it.
Because he's always been with you.
Exactly.
He's the co-pilot.
Exactly.
There
He
you
never
go.
went away.
Piece of the puzzle.
He's always been there.
Never gonna go away.
Exactly. Exactly. Also, what's not going to go away as I horribly transition this is the book that we're reading tonight, which is going to be really cool. Not only after we're done talking here to Cory, and you can hang out for as long as you want to. If you want to come back at the end and talk some more, that'd be great. But you don't have to because I know it's getting kind of late there. So feel free to drop off.
I'll be here as long as I can, yeah.
For as long as you want. But we're going to go and live record the first chapter so you can kind of listen to it. And it looks like we're going to get an ad. My ad thing is not working. It usually plays the Old Spice jingle, and it lets us know we're about to have an ad. Maybe it'll do it here in about 2 minutes, because it says we're about to have an ad in 2 minutes, and I didn't get the warning. So we'll see. We'll see if we hear Old Spice, but not sponsored. But let's get back to talking about the book a little bit in there. I noticed kind of and I haven't finished the book yet because we were kind of talking about this a couple days ago when we were setting up and trying to get everything to work so we could stream at the same time. I don't get to read a lot for like fun anymore, unless it just happens to be like the book that I'm reading for an audiobook is fun to read and I want to read it. Like if those two things just happen at the same time, which isn't always the case. Although it does happen a lot. I haven't gotten to finish your story. I have it here, and Cory was amazing enough to send me. I got a little signed copy. That's right, special signed copy. Can't get those all the time. But I got one. I haven't gotten to finish it yet, but I noticed the main character looks like throughout the story is going to be the chief of police in the small town in Kentucky, right?
Yes, Deerfield, Kentucky, fictional town. Chief of Police Nathan Hargett is our main character, and we follow him throughout the entire story.
Right.
Just seeing like what happens to him as he goes from the initial crime scene,
Mm-hmm.
has an injury. While he's recovering, he's still trying to figure out what happened to that crime scene, what happened to him, and who is now starting to follow him.
Right. And I noticed, so he's got a couple of deputies there, and there's, especially in this first chapter, we're doing a lot of like looking at the crime scene. We're looking for like little details, and he's kind of pointing this stuff out. As we'll hear here in a little bit, how much like research did you have to do into like methodology? Like, is that always fascinates me, right? Because you see the things online where they're like, like a writer's search history on Google is something that could get him in trouble. They're like, how to kill somebody, get away with it. Like, look, I'm writing a book, right? Like, how much research did you have to do? And like, did you learn like cool, like interesting little things that you actually ended up throwing into there?
Or? There was a good amount of research that went into that, specifically with Kentucky law, Kentucky police codes, because obviously anywhere you are in the states, your laws can change. Your like specific things like I said, police codes, those are different depending on what state you're in. There's a lot that are the exact same. 10-4 is okay, understood, confirmed.
Right.
Every single like police unit does that, to my knowledge. However, you go across the sea, you go to the UK, you go to Belgium, you go off to Japan, you go to Kuwait. Doesn't matter where you go, the little things about like police force will change. The laws, the small town versus the statewide versus your country, those are all going to be slightly different. So I wanted to know exactly what I was getting into by doing that. And I already knew he was going to be from the South. He was going to have a little bit of an accent. I saw the character and I heard him just kind of like have a conversation. So I'm like, if he's going to be down South, I need to have a little bit more knowledge of the South. And I have family down in Georgia, so I've spent a decent amount of time there. I've heard how some of the people talk. I've heard how people of native states are. So I'm in Pennsylvania. We get a lot of people from New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, Vermont. They're all coming through, and I hear little quirks to their accents.
Yep.
And then somebody listening to me right now is going to hear me say something that sounds very Pennsylvanian. And that's just what happens. So like I wanted to know how they spoke. So I actually spent a few hours listening to news reports from like local Kentucky like news anchors. I wanted to hear how they delivered the report, and I wanted to just kind of get an idea of what their jargon was.
That
exactly
is so
how they
cool.
went about presenting.
That is interesting because I do the same thing, obviously, so that I can represent those accents more authentically. And I find myself like for hours just listening to strange accents, right? Like doing research for like Southern accents and like listen to this particular different, I guess, dialect, I guess you could say, with their own colloquialisms and how they say things. And I'll get into like, the little old man sitting down at the dock skinning a catfish, and I've listened to that guy for hours because it's just fascinating. But that's cool. Like I never, I guess, thought about it from that angle, like that coming from the writing. Because a lot of times you'll see text where it doesn't give you like a flavor association. And at least in the first chapter, there isn't like a lot of like, hey, this is Southern, and we've got all those shortenings and stuff. It's kind of left up to the interpretation of the reader, which is honestly kind of how I prefer it a lot of the times. Sometimes it gets hard to read if they're throwing that stuff in there, but that's interesting. Like, coming from that point of view. Yeah,
I didn't want to make anything too accent heavy, especially in the dialogue. And I do think that my first draft was that, because I was forcing that like speech upon each character that I wanted to have it. And not everyone's going to, because you go off to, say, Russia. You're going to hear English speaking people. And if Russia is, not Russia, if they're anywhere in the world, for instance, you will hear that language spoken exactly how that person does. Their neighbor will speak it slightly different. In Russia, not everyone speaks the Russian accent. They have many different accents because Russia is massive. So the same thing happens in a small city. You'll have people coming from other areas or other countries, and they're going to have a slightly different way of speaking, and that creates an entirely new character because it adds a different dimension. Somebody in the South can be speaking like, the classic Western kind of twang, or they got a drawl coming out, and instead that is somebody that lives in Maine.
Right.
Why is this
Right.
cowboy in Maine? He moved.
Right.
Or he was born there. That's his
Yeah.
that's his new life. Whatever it is. Like, it creates a character, basically.
I see a lot too, like personally, like depending on where you live in parts of because like a lot of the states in the United States are huge. They're like the size of countries, right? And with that geographic spread, even like the nuances of accent within that state can be different. Like I'm in California right now, but I've listened to some people that grew up in very rural parts of California, and they almost sound Southern. There's a slight rural like twinge to their speech where you're like, where are you from? California. Like the state of is there another place called California in Texas or something? Because you don't sound like you're from here. So there is a lot of truth to that, even like inner state, right? So that's interesting. I like that. And you mentioned too that you kind of heard the character talking, and that kind of inspired something in terms of dialogue or maybe writing. Is that kind of what first inspired you to write the story, the book? Did something significant kind of play out in your mind that inspired you to write it? Was it a specific character or something, or how did that like evolve? Like what was the, I guess, moment where you decided, ooh, this, I need to write about this?
So with like the book, like I mentioned, it was a nightmare that like it happened a few times, and I dove into it and I said, I want to write this down, because at the time I was very much interested in, I'd like to just keep a small journal of what my dreams are, kind of interpret it and see like, is there any meaning behind it? And what I got from it was apparently a novel.
A whole novel.
Yeah. Just going through like the dream, and like I said, it happened a couple times from the moment I had that concept and sat down and did it, to actually sitting down and saying, I'm going to write this. I did have other small parts of it seemed like the same story, because I noticed the character. This person that I've never met in my entire life, doesn't look like anybody I've ever known, doesn't sound like anyone, with the accent. This was a completely new person to me, and I'm watching them interact with a crime scene. I'm floating above them, watching it like third person kind of view, and just seeing how he's reacting to these different things. And like in that dream, I actually got part of the layout to the Willard house, which is the opening for Before the Shadows. And as you're kind of going through that, I even have like sketches of it. Like I started drawing out like what I saw to make sure I didn't forget. And just like little quirks like that influenced how I wrote the story. So with the accent, I heard his accent. I'm like, this has to happen. And I listened to a bunch of different, like I said, news broadcasts, but it wasn't just for Kentucky. It was Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama. I wanted to hear who sounded the most like him. And it came down to about
platter of the South.
Kentucky. Basically, I'm looking at like everything. I'm just taking a little sample here and there. It's like, who is he? And I settled in Kentucky. And I created a fictional town because I didn't want to set it somewhere and then someone that actually lives there read the story and says, this isn't accurate. Like, we don't have these types of trees. We don't have this hospital here. It doesn't make sense. I came up with the fictional thing.
There you go. Safe bet.
Because I wanted it to exist in a general area, but it's still fictional. So no one's going to say, like, that's my hometown. It doesn't exist.
Right. Because there is that guy out there that watches the golf game and they're like, that bird is not from Florida. It's not native. Like,
Oh god,
you
so
need to
there
watch
is a
something
sound.
else. Like,
It's gonna bother you.
too
Your immersion's
involved.
broken in this
Right?
golf match.
Yeah. Yeah. There are
But no,
those though.
there's actually a bird that I'm probably gonna get it wrong, so no one quote me, but I think it's a type of wren that exists,
Mhm.
and it is the most heavily used stock sound of a bird. Or maybe it's like a pigeon. I can't remember exactly what it is. Possibly even a dove. I'm not
Mhm.
a bird expert, but this thing lives
Mhm.
in the north, and you can hear it like the second the weather gets warm. This little thing is sitting somewhere outside of your house within range. No matter who you are in Pennsylvania, you can hear this thing go.
Mhm.
And it's one of the most heavily used stock images or stock sounds in movies and film industry. And you'll hear it, and uh, they're set in space. And you get this bird, and it's a completely different world. Earth doesn't exist. This futuristic stuff. You hear this bird.
So what you're saying
He's
is,
outside my window. You're not in space.
right?
It's like watching Interstellar and like, oh, found out it's set
Hmm.
on Earth.
Right.
Immersion's broken.
Immersion's broken. Yeah. So what you're saying is, you're that guy that listens to the golf game for the birds. I knew it.
I hear it.
I knew.
I want to know where that bird is. I want to know why it migrated. And when
Okay.
the game is over, I'm upset. I'm like, a couple more holes. I almost had it. I gotta know.
So I mean, long story short, make your stories in the fictional place because Cory will be listening or reading for that particular bird that's from his
Mhm.
hometown. So I
Yeah.
noticed though that back to serious talk, the genre that this gets at least put in on some of the places, and I'm wondering if categorization works differently between it has to between different places like Barnes and Noble, Amazon, all that kind of stuff. It got put in, and a lot of them like in horror or like mystery horror. What genre would you define it in? Where would it sit for you if you had one genre you could place it in?
Yeah. All the different sites will take tropes or things that they think it fits with, and they'll throw
Right.
it in there. So I've seen horror, I've seen sci-fi listed, I've
Yeah.
seen psychological, I've seen thrillers. It falls under all that stuff. But the way
Okay.
that I
Mhm.
wrote Before the Shadows was always to be a suspense. And
Okay.
the more that I was like researching, because that's a huge part of marketing, is knowing where your book lies. Because when you put that label on it, that is what a lot of companies are going to use to then market and identify your specific book. They'll say, this is what it is, it goes in this section. So if someone's looking for it,
Mhm.
they know what to type in terms of a generalized genre. Um, for me, as I was kind of like digging that up a little bit more, I found it was leaning toward like the subsection of that in like psychological suspense,
Gotcha.
because it does kind of play with your head some of the stuff that's going on, which is what I wanted. Like I didn't want it to be like
Mhm.
straightforward, like there's a man with a gun over there and there's a dead body. He must have
Right.
committed the crime, case closed.
Right.
There's little red herrings here and there to
That's awesome.
slightly mislead you, but the story is beneath the surface straightforward. And
Yeah.
as you read through it, it does make more and more sense. But yeah, psychological suspense is probably the best way to that I would categorize it.
Okay. Yeah, because like I've been in a big like horror kick lately, but like the very first chapter, especially upon like reading through it again, came off very like suspense forward to me, like thriller
Mhm.
suspense and more into that area. But you know, books evolve, right? They can totally change as we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the whole story. So just kind of
Oh
wanted to
yeah,
see what you thought too, just because like you said, you know, they try to trope you out into these different genres, and it's interesting sometimes to hear like the author's point of view. Like, no, actually, it's pretty firmly suspense. I don't know why they threw it in paranormal horror. You know, like so that's always
yeah,
interesting.
and paranormal. Yeah, that is one that it gets thrown under,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it does kind of make sense that it would be under there, but it doesn't follow enough to be just boxed into that one category.
gotcha,
But yeah, I've seen them in a lot.
gotcha.
Historical
Uh,
fiction was one, which I don't
really?
know how Amazon did that. Yeah, it was in historical fiction, and they might have taken it out, but when it was released,
Okay,
I kept refreshing every day to see like what
as
those
you do.
numbers were. and it got to like the high like 500s or something in suspense category, which was awesome to see.
Hmm.
But I saw historical fiction.
Oh, I know. Okay.
I'm like,
I
this
thought you
has
were going to
nothing
say it
to
got
do
to
with
like
fiction.
top 500 in historical fiction. You're like, it's all made up. I don't.
At that point, I would lean into it
Right.
and I'd be like,
Right.
yes, this occurred at the same time
Yeah.
as everything in Gettysburg. When was
I mean,
Gettysburg? The past.
yeah. What time period of it?
Whatever sells.
Right. Yeah. Whatever you think, that's what it fits into.
The story does actually take place in the late 90s.
Hmm.
There isn't a specific date that's placed on it.
Hmm.
Um, the the overall like theme of it I wanted to be was we don't live in the technological age. You don't have one of these things just in your pocket. You can call for
Right.
help. You're good. You're safe. You're fine. There's no worries in the world because help is just a minute down the road. No, I wanted this town to be semi-isolated. It's a large area. Like you leave the county, you're driving for a while. I even described the chief's journey back to his house after he leaves the hospital and just like how scenic it is. And there was a highway built that surpassed that. So no one even takes this road anymore. It's pretty dead. And he enjoys it because he's like, I don't like the hustle and bustle. I like it calmer. I like it peaceful. This is what I want. And I already saw that scene in my head as I was drafting it.
Hmm.
I did not want a cell phone to really be prevalent. So the the original thing I set in 1997, and I grew up in that era. I saw stuff. I watched cell phones evolve. I watched the computer come up. I saw how like certain health policies, like HIPAA, is mentioned in this, and that's because the way I wrote it, HIPAA existed for barely a year at this point, and
Oh,
people are
okay.
still acclimating to it. So the hospital staff mention it, and Nathan's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know that," but he's not terribly familiar with it. So
Gotcha.
there's a hint at the date there. The type of flashlight they use is kind of a different style than what's used in modern police forces. That's another kind of
Hmm.
hint. Um, just like the static he gets in his radio here and there, that's another hint. It's like, okay, it might not be the best technology. And I just wanted to create that environment. So there's little things like that that the reader might not notice, but somebody that grew up in that era might look at it and say, that kind of seems like how
Oh
I
yeah.
was when I was growing up, or like I
I
recognize
remember
that
that. Yeah.
from my
Yeah.
day and age.
No, that's awesome. That's
Mm,
awesome. Now,
yeah,
this book has been out since, if I remember right, about August of last year, right? Is when it
you're correct.
first got put out there. So it's almost been a year since it's been out. How has that
Almost.
been for you as the author of this book? And do you have anything that's planned to come out here soon? I know you mentioned the other points of view and everything. Have those already been written at this point, or are you still kind of working on those?
Um, the second story in this series, again,
Mm-hmm.
this is a standalone story.
Standalone.
You read
Yeah.
it, you get the whole thing. It's a contained world. The next one is the prequel to it, where it follows the victim of the story, Emily Moore, and like what happens there. I
Mm.
have written several thousand words to that. I think I'm maybe 15,000 words or so in.
Okay.
Her story, I think, is going to be shorter, so it's not going to hit the about 80,000 words that Before the Shadow is, I think. Hold on, do I even have it up here? Before the Shadows hit 79,918 words, and oh
Okay.
boy, did that hurt looking at it and saying, I missed it by only 800 some words. The
Well,
industry standard.
right. You could have just like inserted him reading a poem, his favorite short story at the end. We'll fill out those words. Right.
There it
Yeah.
is. Hmm.
Let
No,
me sing
I
you a
looked at
song
it
of
and I'm like,
exactly 50 words. Yeah.
I have a 49 word page, and I just need to add one additional word.
That's
I'll
right.
add another the. Perfect.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's
But
better.
yeah, the sequel there is in the works. Same thing with the third book. I do have a
Okay.
few thousand words written in that, and that's probably about 10,000 almost. So they're both coming along. Um,
It's like a little bit
it's a
of
lot of
pre-planning. Yeah.
a lot of it because I have to make sure that the beginning um, of this story actually works and like everything that's mentioned with the prequel, and then sets everything up for the third book, which takes place the exact same time and then going forward past Nathan's story. So I'm watching like the characters, the
Hmm.
time frames, like, oh, this officer was brought in only like X amount of months ago. Well, Emily exists way before that.
Right.
She comes to the area. Does she interact with this officer? Does he exist? I have to make sure I have like that small detail in there where normal person wouldn't notice. Somebody that read the first book and is like going through it with a fine-tooth comb,
Hmm.
they read the prequel and they're like, nope, that character's missing. You forgot it. That was important.
Right. Right.
So it's like nitpicky for myself to make sure I don't miss something like that.
Right. That's interesting.
Um, but yeah,
That's a kind
those
of a
two are
perspective I
going.
never like thought about, like having to have that integrity of the timeline,
The
especially
timeline
leading up
is
to it. Yeah.
intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are several authors that I check out and that
Mm.
like I've read some of their stories. Um, Victoria Greffer, I believe, is her last name. I'm sorry if I
Okay.
mispronounced that. She is awesome as well, and she wrote like massive fantasy books. And she just had a prequel come out not too long ago, and she was doing kind of the same thing. She was developing the story from the ground up. I haven't read it yet, but the first story in the trilogy, amazing, and she did it right, where
Hmm.
she was creating that character. She was establishing like the timeline of how everything works. She's mentioning stuff that happens, and then she's going to go back through it and write an entire book about all of that. And
Gotcha.
it's like even like the massive names, honestly, at the top of my head, I can't think of a single one at this moment. I mean, Stephen King,
Oh yeah.
Stoker,
Hmm.
Steve Alton, like any of them, it's like they write something in the past, they're still going to reference that stuff. But they probably have like a thick notebook of like everything that they have to like hit. It's like these are all my character notes. I'm skimming through.
Right.
That's what color his shoes were.
Mm.
Got it.
Mm.
Something as
Mm.
small as that would drive somebody insane. It's like
All right.
you said that they were suede shoes.
Right.
Why are they Dockers?
Wait a minute. Yeah. Wait a minute. You'll have that guy, the bird guy from the Golf Channel.
He's out.
Uh,
Yeah,
we did get
he's out
a
there.
question actually from Instagram
Yeah.
for you. Where do you take inspiration from? Oh, where do you take inspiration from for starting a story or a book? You kind of answered a little bit with this book, um, but
Um,
have you written others other than this one, or is this your very first one?
oh, what's that? So, I didn't write the entire thing,
Ah,
but I do have a short story
Legends.
that is releasing
Mhm.
on June 15th. Great segue.
All right.
For an anthology that I
Oh,
jumped
cool.
into. Um, Brittany Tucker, another author
Mhm.
that I follow, that I partnered with in this, was writing statewide stories, tales of hometown legends and lore, and it's all across the U.S. She sent out like messages saying like, "Hey, we have this idea for an anthology. I want to compile stories from across the country. You tell me of some kind of story from your hometown, and it's like 5,000 words. That's your max. I want to hear your story."
That's
So
cool.
this gave me a limit to what I could actually do,
Hmm.
which was proving difficult as I was going through the editing process because I think I hit like 6,000 words, so I had to trim 1,000 words out of the story. But it's literally just hometown. That was all I had to go off of. So in terms of starting this story, I
Hmm.
knew where I wanted to go.
Hmm.
Um, and that was obviously the few cities that surrounded me. I wanted something that was native to me. And with that, I'm like, what is the most iconic thing I can think of? Scranton, Pennsylvania. Okay, you got the office. I'm not mentioning that. You've
Right.
got the giant sign that lights up. I don't want to mention that. You've got the terrible roads everywhere. I could go with that. And then I was thinking, terrible roads, potholes are everywhere. The Archibald pothole. It is the largest pothole in the entire world. It Oh God, now I'm not gonna be able to remember all these facts.
Pull up your
It,
research
it
page
was.
quick.
You have no idea how many I had. No idea. Um, the Scranton Historical Site was able to acquire the rights to the land,
Hmm.
along with another 150 acres, which was,
Wow.
I think the pothole was only sitting on 1 acre back in the early 1900s. And when it acquired that, it then deemed it a state park after X amount of years. I think it was like the 70s. It was finally deemed a national park. I
Okay.
believe so. And they like expanded it. So it's a lot of preserve that there's no development on. It's awesome. And there's trails back and forth. There's a park with a playground. There's a baseball field. There's a soccer field. It's an awesome place. And
All around
then,
this big pothole. Is that-
well, that's the thing. That's all over here. And then this
Mhm.
tiny little spot right over here, that's
Uh-huh.
where the pothole is. And there's a
Okay.
road that takes you right to it in only about like 30 seconds from one of the main roads in Einan, just outside of Scranton.
Mhm.
And right there, pull in, there's the pothole. Doesn't look impressive. You get up to it, and it's massive. Like, it is deep. I think it's over 42 feet, it's over 43 feet deep. And
Whoa.
they don't actually know, like, the precise depth because like there's a lot of stuff that built up, a lot of dirt that came down, and it's somewhat unstable. It was created from like the floods of, I think they said, the Cretaceous period, where just
Oh,
more and more
wow.
water was pooling and just like swirling and got caught there and eventually
Mhm.
started burrowing down. So I'm looking up all this information about it and I'm like, there's enough here to write a good story, but sticking in my vein, I wanted to say I'm going to write this as a suspense.
Ah, all
So
right.
a lot of historical stuff in the story,
Mhm.
but I gave it a little twist just to make it something different. It is a fiction, but like I said, I wanted to write something that gave me that prompt. So roundaboutly, to answer the question that was asked,
Uh-huh.
is I go with one specific idea.
Gotcha.
I try to hold on to something. With Before the Shadows, it was the dream. I took that,
Mhm.
I took what small bit I got from it, ran with that, expanded and kept going. With the statewide stories short story, I had a prompt and I had to follow that, so I did some research and I went after that. Other short stories I've written up, um, I'm compiling my own anthology, and the stories each have to do with like one small thing. One story I've deemed Caterwall is all about my cats waking me up every single night,
Uh-huh.
either slamming the bedroom door, scratching on it, attacking the bed, meowing like they're
I
being
think
attacked.
a lot of people can probably sympathize with your story starter there. Yeah.
I'm hoping, but it's just something as simple as that. I took that, I sat
Mhm.
down, started writing an idea, just jotting it down, and from there I expand upon it. If it's a good story, I keep going. If it's a bad story, I let it marinate and see whether or not I want to come back.
That's awesome. What's the name again of that compilation?
This is Statewide Stories, Tales of Hometown Legends and Lore. Very nice artwork there. Um, Hold on, I'll actually tell you who did the artwork.
Statewide Stories, Tales of Legend and Lore?
Tales of Hometown Legends and Lore.
Hometown Legends and Lore. Tales of Hometown.
Yeah, cover
Legends.
by Brittany Paget. I believe I'm pronouncing that correct. Edited and
Put that
compiled
in
by
your
Brittany
Instagram.
Tucker, and it is
Mhm.
available June 15th. So if you're interested in short stories,
Okay.
if you like a little bit of like tidbits of states and like tiny towns, go ahead and pick it up. My story is 17 pages, so it's not even a long read. None of them
Okay.
really are, because again, 5,000 words,
Yeah.
compile that, and you get a good little bite-sized story.
Yeah. I really love I like, full length novels, obviously, but I've
Mm.
especially the past, I'd say 5, 6 years, I can't get enough of short stories because it seems like and I don't know about from your perspective, but I would assume so that the skill level and the amount of care that it requires to craft a short story is sometimes a lot more than that novel, right? It's getting all that information, everything down to just what you need to know to tell you that story, right? But it doesn't, a lot of really good short stories don't feel that way. It feels like a fully fleshed out thing, um, but
Yeah,
they're really short.
you're creating
you
all
know?
of this world and you're jamming it into whatever your
Mm-hmm.
constraints are. So for me, 5,000 words. I have entered into a couple contests
Mm-hmm.
for 1,000 words, for 100 words,
Oof.
and to tell a full story in that small time or in that small amount of space is very difficult, especially if you want to get the point across,
Mm-hmm.
but you have maybe a conflict that you have to resolve in that time frame. That ain't easy, and
Right.
it's a task all its own. And even going through the editing process with the 100-word story, I literally did 100 words. I'm like, I can't make this any shorter, and I kept editing and editing and editing, and I'm like, I just don't see it getting there.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what um, the company was. I think WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they do a lot of stuff like monthly,
Oh, okay.
and I wanted to do that, and it was a lot of fun. But I don't think I'm going to be writing another 100-word story anytime soon.
That sounds difficult.
As
Difficult, but
small as
you
it
know,
was, it was difficult. Yeah,
it's one of those things. You know, they say as like a creative person, always step outside your box a little bit, and try to challenge yourself.
definitely.
And that seems like 100-word short story definitely falls in that category. But yeah, maybe some you don't want to jump into all the time. But man, I'd be interested to read
It's
those
also a
too.
nice exercise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Kind of warm up the juices, if you will. Which actually kind of leads to this question we got from Instagram. What do you do when you get stuck in the writing process? How do you clear your head or get back in the groove?
I stopped writing.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
as simple as that. A lot of authors that I've followed, and even
Mm-hmm.
professional authors, they'll say that they'll stop writing, they'll get up, they'll walk away, whether they come back in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, or 5 weeks to that project.
Mm-hmm.
They just won't dive back into it if they hit a block. Writer's block, I've read, doesn't exist. It's you not being creative, or you not like turning a
Mm-hmm.
corner somewhere yourself. And it's writer's block exists for everyone, and it's that pause in between your idea and the next one, and it's like, I need to get there. You can keep writing,
Mm-hmm.
but you just might be wasting your time, and that's just from my experience and my perspective. I wouldn't just want to keep writing dribble that I just could not stand behind. I
Right.
would want to shelve it and come back. And with my last live stream on Twitch, I ended up
Mm-hmm.
doing that. I had technical difficulties both with the recording software, with the microphone, and with Word, that I just said, okay, I'm shutting everything down. I'll bring it back up and we'll see what happens. And then I looked at the story as I'm loading it, and I'm waiting for the camera to come back on. And I'm like, I'm not in love with the story right now. What if I jump into a different short story that I've already started? And I enjoyed that writing process more. So it could just be for anyone out there that's looking to do some writing and they feel like they're hitting that roadblock. Stop writing what you're writing and write something different.
Just
Just
switch to something else.
like
Okay.
like you said even before, step
Mm-hmm.
out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
That could be as simple as like just writing a different genre, taking a different point of view, go from person to first person, describe a scene differently, or look out your window and literally write what is happening outside that window. Nothing's happening? Good, write it. There's a police chase? Good, write it. But just I don't condone chasing the police or being
Right.
chased by them,
Right.
but go
I
ahead and just write that thing,
I
and that
laugh
could
because
be the cure.
that's one of my favorite like things to watch is police chases for some. I don't know why. I don't know. Like the high speed pursuits. Yeah. Yeah. Almost like just, and most of them, it's just the dumbest reasons people are running. Like, why? What are you doing? Like,
Why were you running? I had to get to the store.
and they're not going to get away, right? You're not going to be faster than the radio and the helicopter. Like, it's it's not going to happen.
If
You're
the
not going to get away.
helicopter's out, because
You're done.
almost every single police chopper has infrared. They're gonna find you.
They're going
They
to find you.
will
Yeah.
not miss your heat signature. Like, I never run from police. It doesn't matter
No.
what your crime is. Don't speed. It doesn't matter what you're late for. Nothing is worth your life. That is a public service announcement. But seriously, like, take
PSA.
care of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I think that pretty much does it for all the questions that we have in chat. I think I burned through them all. If you have any last minute questions, throw them in there because we have Cory here for a little bit. And then here in just a couple minutes, we're going to go jump over into the booth and record this first chapter live and get it made there for Cory to use for promo or to throw in his recycle bin on his computer. It doesn't matter. You can use it for whatever you want. It's his. Oh,
Just be ambient sound all day
yeah,
long
yeah, just playing it in the background for some reason.
on replay.
Like, yeah, it just I
White
love
noise.
having I love having the noise.
I need
of
you to
somebody else
whisper this
talking.
because I need the ASMR.
The
So
ASMR
just
version of
at a
okay,
low
yeah.
level.
All right. Coming to you this July. We have another question, actually, a couple looks like in Instagram. Since I
Oh,
mentioned it, now they're flooding in. Do you ever
good.
consider a story not worth finishing, or is it just hold on until you get the inspiration to continue with it? Good question.
Um, I have a few that are sitting on my computer that I haven't touched for probably like a year or so, and
Mm.
like I look at them and I'll click into the document, I'll read over what I have, and sometimes they will just be shelved. They'll just sit there until I can use parts of it. Um, I do have one that I started the idea for, wasn't in love with it, but I liked the feel of it. And I didn't want to get rid of like that very loose document because I said that's a good reference point. I can utilize what I'm looking at, whether I just take like one tiny detail and that becomes a story of itself, or I skin the entire thing and I say I can use this, not that, none of this, ignore this, and I'll dive into that concept. Now, I have thrown out works that I just did not like. I
Mm.
don't typically do that because I won't sit to write unless I know it's going to be a good idea. I have documents on my phone. I've written up a couple different notes of things that I haven't touched. They may be good ideas, they may be bad ideas, but the fact that I haven't even jotted them down on my computer means that I'm probably not going to use it. Um, so, and that's fine. If you're a writer out there, by all means, just throw something out. If you don't like it, if it's not at all working, don't waste your time on it if you know that you're not going to enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you write. If you don't enjoy it, you might as well work a job that you don't care about and
Right.
one that makes you unhappy because that's what you're doing to yourself is you're making yourself unhappy. So I have documents that I will not touch until I feel the inspiration, and then there's other things that I just will not even write because they're not worth it. So it's up to you. Make your own judgment call on that, but I have thrown out documents before and there are certain ones that I'll hold on to.
Makes sense. Use them as little pieces of maybe when you have that writer's block, right? You can jump into those and just
Exactly.
write on
I'll
those
make
for a
it
little
work
bit or
somehow,
something,
and that
right?
could be spin the wheel.
There you go. Hey, thanks for joining us there, Hearthside. And I put out there in YouTube and Twitch. Check out Hearthside Gaming's channel. He's also a fantastic narrator. You should check out his stuff. I know, Cory, you also do a little bit of streaming here on the Twitches. That's why we're doing the whole, stream together thing right now. Where can people find more of your work, connect with you, kind of keep up to speed with all the things that is Cory? What you got going on?
Yeah, I do have a streaming channel on Twitch. I go live every single Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's just me doing my writing process. So if this at all spurs on like a little bit of curiosity, you can jump on, you can watch me go through the writing process as I tackle short stories. I'll go back and forth between projects, and that's what I'm doing right now. And you're able to find me on there. I go for an hour and a half, and that's just a space for people to come in, kind of tune out like the rest of the day, relax, jump in and be creative themselves, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and that's under Laniewski Literature. You'll be able to find that.
Okay.
Same thing on what is it, TikTok. I'll post on there every once in a blue moon. That's under Laniewski Literature as well. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Cory Laniewski Author. And if I'm seeing like massive sales come through and I can actually warrant having a website, I will jump on that. It's sitting there. It's ready to be published. I just can't see myself throwing down like the money for the website every single month because the revenue is not quite there yet. But
Right.
I'm happy to say that book sales are still there. And thank you if you've purchased it, any of you watching. I appreciate you. Like anyone that's purchased it, anyone that's asked for it, or those that have come up to me and actually like said thank you, like, hey, I read your thing. Um, I had that once. That was an awesome feeling. Um, my adoring fans are out there somewhere. I just need to find them. The moment I step out of my car, there he is.
Right.
Uh, but no, like it's. Uh, I try to keep a very active social media presence. That if you want to talk, you have questions, ask them. The Facebook and Instagram are probably the easiest way to find me, and I love interacting with people. I love having that conversation, that dialogue back and forth. And if I become a multimillionaire off these books, if I have like 50 books under my name,
Heck
I'm
yeah.
still going to do my best to have that conversation. I will still personally sign every single book that someone orders from me. Um, that's just what I want to do. So, like, if you find me on those social medias, jump in, say hi. I will gladly stop what I'm doing and say hello to you as well.
It's awesome. Yeah, I have my own signed copy. Just saying. Just saying, it's pretty
See,
cool.
I do it.
It's
Proof.
pretty cool. It's pretty cool. You order one, it'll send you the signed copy. Yeah.
Order it
if
from
you're-
me though. Contact
yes.
me for that
Yes.
copy because I don't
Yes.
have signed copies out in the world.
Right.
Um,
That'd be kind of hard
for
to keep
me
track of.
to get it.
Kind of hard to keep
Yeah.
track of. If you're on the Twitch side, if you're on the other platforms, you can check out Twitch TV/4Fife6, and there is a link to Cory's channel as well that you can click on there and follow him as well. And thank you, Hearthside, for following. All the cool kids have one. That's what Hearthside says. Exactly. Also, apologize. This camera keeps like shutting off for some reason. I don't know why, and I have to
I've
keep
seen that.
restarting
Yeah.
it. Yeah, but somebody on Instagram's like keeping me on my toes. They're like, "Hey, your camera's off." Like, thanks. Turn it back on. So I'll try to figure that out before the next stream, I guess. But yes, please do check out. And then I left the link in all of the places that you're watching right now, where to pick up your copy of the book. If you like what it's about, if you like Cory there and what you're about to hear in just a few minutes, the first chapter of it as we record it live here from the booth. Any final things before we go, Cory, that you want to bring up, let people know?
Yeah, I got the 2 books once more. Before the Shadows, Psychological Suspense. I have a short story, The Archibald Pothole, in Statewide Stories, Tales of Hometown Legends and Lore. They're available wherever you buy books online. Physical stores, go in and ask for them. They will purchase it, they will bring it to the store, and you will have your copies there. Signed copies, again, contact me. Find me directly. Message me, go through the social medias, and I can do that for you, and I will be ecstatic to sign you a copy and send it out to you. Again, I keep an active social media. I will pop in to different things like this. I enjoy having conversations. I was on a podcast, in fact, getting to know the 570 and just talking about my book, and that was an awesome time. Like, you can find me in a couple different spots. Jackie Lentz, she's a podcaster. She had one of my short stories, The Cul-de-sac, on one of her things during the month of October, I believe it was last year.
Cool.
So I'll pop in and out different places. I have a couple of stories, like I said, on the way. I have an anthology that I'm compiling. I've got the prequel and the 3rd installment in this Shadows series. And yeah, I think that basically covers it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Mr. Fife wherever you are watching, if you haven't already, and give him some support as well. He does great narration work. He has done a lot of different things with different books across multiple genres. So no matter what you're reading, you can find something that he's doing. And that is my shameless plug for him because he's an awesome guy.
Well, thank you so much. I've been wanting to bring together a whole bunch of, because we have this opportunity now, I think, right? I'm going to go on my soapbox here for a little bit. We have this opportunity to, especially on Twitch right now, there's a, no kidding, writing and reading category. Authors, narrators, those are the writers and readers. As I reset my camera here again, I think maybe it's overheating. It's really warm. Maybe that's why. I'll figure it out. But I think we have an opportunity, right, to bring our communities together, right? Play this whole, you know, I guess social media game to its maximum, where we can kind of start combining our audiences, right? The people that write the stories, the people that read the stories, in whatever flavor that may happen. I think there's a really good opportunity for us to jump on board and kind of maximize that thing that we have. And not just across maybe just Twitch, but I think it's a good place to maybe jump into as, you know, people start to reach out to other platforms outside of, you know, Instagram or TikTok to view different content, right? Because, you know, we've had that scare here recently in the past with TikTok going away in the States. Well, now what do you do? Now you got to turn to another platform. Maybe I look on Instagram. Maybe you look on Twitch. Maybe you look on YouTube. But I think there's opportunity there. So me personally, I want to explore that more with my fellow narrators and writers that I know, to encourage you, get on board and start sharing, and you know, start streaming your works if you can, sharing it that way. I think there's a really good kind of thing there.
Yeah.
Long-winded way to say thank you very much for agreeing to come on to this thing that we're doing here and streaming together, because I think it's really cool. It's kind of the first time that at least I've experienced doing the stream together thing on Twitch, and then sharing it across the other platforms as well for everybody else. And it was really fun. Thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome. And
yeah, I appreciate it, and thank you for having me. Thank you for bringing this up, suggesting it, and reading the story again. Like, that is just awesome, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Your story was actually the very first story that I read. So it's kind of like one of those, like, almost like nostalgic moment, right? It's like going back to the very first one that I got to read, where you're like, heck yeah,
Kid just got back from
story.
college. Here he is again.
Right. So I had to do it again, right? You know, because it was awesome the first time around, so it'll be even better the second time around. And then getting that recording to you is obviously the next benefit, which we're going to go do here in just a second. A really close second. I'm going to make sure that nobody else is saying anything. Harside said, agreed. It'd be so cool to grow the community. Absolutely. Little baby steps. We'll get there. But this is a really cool idea, and hopefully we get to do this more. And hopefully we'll talk again here soon. Maybe when you have the second and the third book out, you can come back on and we'll talk about that. Maybe, I don't know. Just throwing ideas out there.
We'll definitely talk. Yeah.
Absolutely. Alrighty, so without further ado,
my God, are you still talking?
Still talking. We're gonna go jump into the booth. What I'm gonna do, what you're gonna see, and Cory, feel free to hang out for as long as you want. You can take off if you want, because I know it's gonna be pretty late where you're at. But if you're still here, we'll talk to you in the end. If not, we won't. It's okay. It'll be all right. But we're gonna go jump into the booth. What you're gonna see here next is a be right back screen, and it's gonna be literally the amount of time it takes me to run down the stairs and get into the booth and set up my cell phone so that we can do the next part of it and do the recording, and so you can hear it and all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave you all with a little bit of music. Thank you again, Cory, for jumping on, and we'll see you, or we won't, here in a little bit. See you in the booth, at least, though.
My pleasure.
All righty. See ya. Alrighty. Hopefully this is all up and going, and you're getting a little Inception effect right now. There we go. Okay. I think that's good, and yeah, that should be hopefully coming through just fine, and if it's not, let me know. Let me know. I'm going to try to keep up chat right here for the time being, just so I can see if you're saying anything for a moment, and then I'll kind of minimize it there. Okay, cool. I think everything is coming across, though. Instagram doesn't tell me because it's always frozen now. It's always frozen. I don't know why. But you should be able to actually, let me double check one setting to make sure you guys can all hear the sound as it comes through when we're playing this. Play a little bit of this story. It's called Halloween Candy, from a podcast called the Dead Airwaves podcast. It's a horror podcast that I've just recently started narrating on, and we'll be featuring another one of their stories next Monday on Macabre Monday. So let me play that just to make sure it works.
Candy by Michael McDowell. The neighborhood was neither this nor that. Half the houses had been built in the early 20s. The other half had been built in the early 50s. All the houses were...
Oh, all right. Well, there's the beginning. You'll have to check out more next Monday. Actually, that one's already been recorded, so I'll let you know when it's live. But we're going to start a new Mamber Jamber here and get to recording. Well, that's opening and closing. Let me set this up. Also, real quick, Matt's Magica, which is a book that was written by Daniel Georgiev, will be coming out this month sometime. Either this month or very early next month. But it is all done. It's ready to go, and we're just now kind of waiting on our distribution option to be finalized and kind of figuring out that whole bear. I think we have it pinned down to what we're going to use to distribute it. But when that's all final, I'll let you all know where you can pick up a copy. It should be everywhere that you can get one, Spotify, Audible, all that kind of stuff. But there's a little bit of weird stuff with ACX and Audible, and because the author is actually out of Belgium, and they don't offer ACX through there, so we're using a different way to kind of do it. Long story short, it should be on Audible, and you should be able to pick it up. But if not, I'll let you know. And if you're interested on picking up maybe a preview copy in exchange for maybe leaving an honest review, let me know, and I'll hook you up with a free copy. Let me know. But it'll be out here soon. I'm super excited about it. Fantastic story, and I really, really enjoyed reading it. It's got this very unique fantasy, math incorporated into science, incorporated into magic. It's so well done. It's so well done. It's got some of my favorite fantasy stuff in it that I just want to see in a fantasy novel. So Matt's Magica, worth to pick up on print and in audio form. Just saying. All right, let me open this up. Okay, that started. Let me get that going new. Perfect. Oh, and it didn't transfer over my dialogue highlighted version. That's fine. Ha! We're professionals. We don't need highlighted dialogue. We'll just end up redoing those dialogue times 4 times when I get the character wrong. That's how it's gonna happen. That's how it's gonna happen. Let's go into the drive. Let's go into WW. Let's create ourselves a new folder, shall we? Called BTS. Yeah, there we go. BTS. Oh, that didn't have a space. Okay. up and rolling, and we'll start here in just a couple seconds. Gives me a little bit of time to air out the booth a little bit too, because it was cooking in here. It is rather warm. For like the past couple weeks, it's been cooking in this booth. It says it's only 77 right now. Feels like it's 177 in here, though. Tell you that. All right. Let me make sure everything's coming across. Fine. All right. Nobody's complained. Awaiting Monday's release. Absolutely. Okay, sounds good to you. Cool. Thank you for letting me know. Awesome. Cool. We'll shut the door. Actually, let me shut that fan off. Hold on. Okay. Now we're locked in. You can't leave. You can't escape. All right. Let me get the earbud in. And I'm putting the earbud for the other side, but I don't think I'm going to be able to hear the Old Spice jingle. Let me know there's going to be an ad break on Twitch, so I apologize in advance. It's not working today for some reason. I don't know. I've had it happen a couple times before, too, or just stopped. And, we're not live streaming unless something breaks, right? Something stops working. So, there you go. So, unfortunately, if you want to catch the whole thing nonstop, without any breaks or pauses, check out the YouTube video afterwards at youtube.com/@456. And you can watch the whole thing. There you go. Nonstop. And then here eventually, maybe, if Cory decides to use it, maybe you'll hear this on social media. Or 5 minutes of it, or whatever it happens to be. Okay. I think we are ready to go. Give it a good quick initial save. And we will start. Chapter 1. After all this, the last thing we need is more rain. Nathan Hargett stared out the window as rain struck the glass, distorting his view of the world outside. He reflected on the body he'd faintly seen through the keyhole of the upstairs bathroom door. Deep sighs fogged up the window, further obscuring the flashing lights coming from his officers' patrol cars. Please, just be some dumb late Halloween prank, he thought. The chief of police, tired from his double shift, leaned against the splintering windowsill beside his dripping hat. Slicked back, thinning brown hair laid flat against his scalp, allowing for the rain to run down the back of his neck. His clothes were drenched from the storm and had torn through the His clothes were drenched from the storm that had torn through the state for nearly an hour at that point. The mostly abandoned farmhouse's old bones shook with little effort from the growing intensity of the downpour that seemed to settle over the isolated town of Deerfield. The winds had just begun to rush through the rural back roads of the wind. Immediately lost my place. There, field. The winds had just begun to rush through the rural back roads the officers found themselves on that evening, and the building's rotted-out frame whistled with each pass. Thunderous cracks rolled across the sky, seemingly encircling the muggy property. It could have just waited another hour, 30 minutes even. A crack of thunder not too far off in the distant Kentucky countryside brought about a pause. Ah, damn it. Nathan wasn't by any means intimidating. His stature and build were fairly average, with defined muscle under a covering of fat gained in his slightly less attractive position over the years. There was a light stubble along his jawline and neck, and bags rested beneath his eyes from draining hours in recent years. Overall, Nathan's... Ow! Let's try that again. Years. Overall, Nathan's appearance was quite average. He realized on many occasions that his looks could deceive, mainly with the help from drunks or travelers that found it wise to harass a cop.
he would not have been identifiable as a chief, if not for his rank tacked on his if not as a chief, if not for his rank tacked on his jacket breast pocket, the patches on either sleeve, and the silver eagle pins on his shirt's collar. Nathan took pride in his work, and although a swift kick to the back of the knee wasn't the standard practice in any police academy, it did bring the larger of the rabble-rousers down to an even playing field in times of confrontation. Size was never really a bother to Nathan while on duty. The formidable headaches that the chief suffered, however, proved a challenge from time to time. Let's do a different emphasis on that. I don't like it. Size was never really a bother to Nathan while on duty. The formidable headaches that the chief suffered, however, proved a challenge from time to time. On this particular night, he was struggling to bring his train of thought back to the reason why he was in this particular house. While glancing over his own reflection, lightning brightened up the majority of the old house through the hazy windows. His badge redirected the light at just the right angle to catch his light brown eyes, forcing the officer to wince and turn away. He straightened his uniform and zipped his jacket closed. Rubbing his eyes, he stared at the furniture that surrounded him. Mildew-covered cushions, rotted-out chair legs and dinner trays, shredded ottomans, and cracked furniture filled the uninviting living room and what might have served as a portion of a dining room at one point. Throughout the entire stint of his career, Nathan had not been forced to navigate stairwells as often as he had this particular shift, and with the storm picking up, his body started to feel every step. He bent down to rub his aching knees, wishing for a sturdy chair somewhere around the worn-down property to rest upon. Yet, somehow after looking over the condition of the seating arrangements, Nathan's ability to stand was no longer a question. Officers' radios buzzed back and forth with chatter across the house as floorboards groaned overhead with the weight of an officer moving from room to room. A loud crash echoed from the opposite side of the house, accompanied by the sound of wood cracking. At this, Nathan reached out to one of his officers. Static kicked up from the radio before Nathan spoke. "Baginski, if those other rooms are clear, you can move on and help Wright and Eriks pop that door. Sounds like they're making some progress. I'll be 1096 in a minute." Another crash resounded within the Another crash resounded within the uninhabited house and was immediately followed by an officer calling out, "Blair County Police Department! If anyone is in there!" Blair County calling out, "Blair County Police Department! If anyone's in there, come out now!" "Looks like they just broke in, Chief. Heading in," Sergeant Baginski replied. 10-4. In the midst of his window-gazing, soul-searching, Nathan brought his mind back to his recent stop at the grocery store the morning prior. In the midst of his window-gazing, soul-searching, Nathan brought his mind back to his recent stop at the grocery store the morning prior. He focused on a multitude of flyers that had been stuck to his vehicle, effectively encasing it in paper. The rather drab leaflets promised an all-inclusive vacation several states away, and when thinking back, he let out a deep sigh of regret that he passed on the offer. I think I said regret weird. And when thinking back, he let out a deep sigh of regret that he passed on the offer. Never mind, I guess I didn't. On the offer. Could have used that trip right about now. Though, not like I care for the chance of snow much more than rain, he said lowly to himself. His car had been decorated with the Lived Hotel Mountain Retreat flyers, only a day before the noted deadline to enter. He assumed that they were likely dumped by whomever was tasked with handing them out in an effort to dispose of them quickly, rather than finish their job. The window to enter had come and gone as quickly as the bits of paper had been placed upon his vehicle's own windows, obscuring its interior. If he could have seen If he could have seen into his car at the time, he would have noticed the empty pack of cigarettes on the dashboard and gone back and... If he could have seen into his car at the time, he would have noticed... Interior. If he could have seen into his... Interior. If he could have seen into his car at the time, he would have noticed the empty pack of cigarettes on the dashboard and gone back in to purchase more. A dry cough cleared his throat as he left the fantasy of his dream vacation upon the windowsill to be washed away by the storm. With the rain falling heavier by the minute, he knew it would not be long before... With the rain... Okay. Let me check on stream here in a little bit, make sure that's all still up and going. Okay. Looks like it is. Okay, cool. I got a message and I couldn't quite read it, and I was like, oh no, did the stream go down? But it looks like it's still running. Okay, cool. Just checking. Might take a little drink of the water here, too. All right. Where do we leave off? Away by the storm. With the rain falling heavier... I immediately lost my place. Where was I? It's because I got distracted. See that phone distracting? That's what we were talking about, Corey. With the rain falling heavier by the minute. There we go. With the rain falling heavier... Yeah. Storm. With the rain falling heavier by the minute, he knew it would not be long before he forgot... The storm. With the rain falling heavier by the minute, he knew it would not be long before he forgot all about the trip once more. He pulled a loose cigarette out from his shirt pocket, the last in his possession, and made his way toward the staircase. He focused on the slightly bent cigarette and thought of his current situation, wondering if snow was indeed worth it. Today being the deadline to enter for the trip, he wondered if it was fate that kept him from going, or if he had purposely ignored his destiny trip. As he stared out the window for a few brief seconds, he had little reprieve. As he stared out of the window for a few brief seconds, he had little reprieve. From accosting an officer for improperly handling evidence to the moment his deputy descended the stairs with an update, Nathan didn't seem to have more than the short allotted window break to gather his thoughts. Probably some smokes out in the mountains, but this is better than running back to the car now, he thought to himself, as he gave the solo tobacco stick a once-over and deemed it fit to smoke. Not like I have any more anyway. It was a bit damp, but Nathan didn't care. He needed the nicotine. While he searched his person for why am I struggling for that? While he searched his person for a lighter, he placed the cigarette between his slightly chapped lips, hoping he didn't leave it out in the car. Deputy Charles Wright approached his chief, shuffling across the damp floorboards. Hey, boss, we cracked that bathroom door open. Nothing blocking it, just a few wedges. Thought I heard something. Al said it looked like you got it open, so I had him make his way to you guys. Yeah, I passed him in the hallway. You taking a break there, Chief? Shift ain't over yet. Just needed a minute, that's all. We good up there? Nathan replied. Well, you're not going to want to see this, but for argument's sake, we could use a second opinion. It's... His eyebrows lifted as his gaze wandered around, as if searching for the right wording. I don't like how I said that. Let me try that again. His eyebrows lifted as his gaze wandered around, as if searching for the right wording to... Wording. Why did I stretch that out? Let's try that again. His eyebrows lifted as his gaze wandered around, as if searching for the right wording to describe what he had seen. He removed his hat and scratched his head before continuing. Well, let's just say I hope you didn't eat today. Levity didn't make any part of the crime scene particularly better, but he tried. Nathan turned to the deputy, realizing his night was still in motion. He knew he needed He knew he'd be needed a while longer and planned to stay for a few minutes before passing the side off to his right hand, Charles, without worry. I like that. He knew he'd be needed a while longer and planned to stay for a few more minutes before passing the side off to his right hand, Charles, without worry. He was confident in the deputy's work, but Charles's weak stomach made for a less effective officer than he would have liked. No, Charlie, I made it this far in the evening without a bite. Got anything? Think I'll snack on something quick going up the stairs, Nathan said with worn-out sarcasm. Never much of a coffee drinker, Deputy Charles Wright typically had some kind of food in his car's glove box. Usually his emergency snack was a sweet treat for those long nights with no action, just to help keep his eyes open. The deputy looked over his pockets with exaggerated movements and said, must have left my fresh baked pie and... Sorry, that's the deputy. The deputy looked up and said, must have left my fresh baked pie and roast chicken back at the precinct. What rotten luck, Chief. His voice, though lacking genuine enthusiasm, felt void of its normally obnoxious energy regarding these all-too-common jokes. Whatever the cause, the deputy wasn't fully embracing his own comedy to brighten up the dark and unpleasant house, and there was an apparent flat tone as he finished speaking. They headed for the stairs with Charles at the lead. They were cautious, avoiding stepping on the faint trail of blood that led up the stairs. The floorboards bowed. The floorboards bowed down every other step, softly echoing through the building. The men kept their feet close to the wall, foregoing using a few good portions of the handrail that remained. The majority of the support was broken, with a few spindles cracked and one leading into the stairwell. The residents had certainly seen better days, and those days had long since passed roughly 15 years prior to the officer's arrival. What was once a well-maintained home with healthy fields circling... What was once... What was once a well-maintained home with healthy fields circling the outskirts of the property now existed as broken... Repeat after me, The property now existed as a broken vessel for the ghosts that roamed its various rooms. Nathan broke through the noise of the creaking boards with the start to an inquiry. What... What should I expect in there? Female, deceased, possibly one from the reported altercation, but no signs of a second party. Didn't get much in the way of details. Kinda wanted your opinion before I retched. This felt like an odd way of leading up to more details, but Charles left it at that. Since they were not too far from the bathroom, Nathan didn't pry. He knew he would... Since they were not too far from the bathroom, Nathan didn't pry. He knew he would see the formerly barricaded room soon enough. With his unlit cigarette placed firmly back in his breast pocket, the two men continued up the stairs. Taking a few steps onto the landing of the second floor, the men could nearly see into the bathroom, just down the hall to their right. The walls of the hallway were once adorned with vibrant yellow and white pinstripe wallpaper and held 6 wall sconces with brilliant candlelight glowing throughout the hall. Now, the wallpaper was faded and dingy, peeling down from the moisture behind the walls, some of it already drooping to the floor in certain places. The candles had since melted away, leaving only stumps perpetually dripping downward, pointing to mounds of wax collected on the floor below. The wood itself was splintered nearly everywhere along the walls and floor. More than one floorboard was loose and giving way to more eerie noises. More than one floorboard was loose and giving way to more eerie noises. As Nathan and Charles entered, they were careful to step around the numerous plastic tags that had dictated the pieces of evidence being documented. Bits of glass were scattered about the tile flooring from the broken mirror above the sink. In the middle of it all was a young woman. She was beautiful, and each officer in turn offered... She was beautiful. Woman. She was beautiful, and each officer in turn... Woman. She was beautiful, and each officer in turn offered the same sentiment. It was a shame to see a woman this young in such a state. Long blonde stained. You know those blonde stains? Such a shame when we get blonde everywhere. At those murder scenes. Blondiness, there we go, just stayed. Long, blood-stained brunette hair was scattered about her face and upon the cold pool covering the tacky floor. The hair was spread out as if she had fallen or jerked her head while on the ground before her death. The glow of hovering flashlights picked out red tones throughout her matted hair. A hint of tan pigmentation was on her now cold... Try not to, cough in the middle of that. That didn't work. A hint of tan... Let's try that again. Hair. A hint of tan pigmentation was on her now cold and fading skin, and she appeared to be of Mediterranean or Hispanic descent based upon her complexion. A multitude of scratches covered her petite figure, cut straight through her clothing. She had on light blue jeans cropped halfway up the shins with frayed ends, and an undershirt with a checkered button-down shirt that was darkened by blood. She had only one white, blood-speckled shoe upon her right foot, with the other nowhere to be seen. By the condition of her adorned shredded sneaker that was close to falling off, the other was assumed to have been in a similar condition. The lone shoe itself appeared to have been worn down over time, and her entire wardrobe alluded to the young girl being homeless. There was no hint of decomposition to the body, but it looked as if she had been in this washroom for... I don't like that inflection. But it looked as if she had... Homeless. There was no hint of decomposition to the body, but it looked as if she had been in this washroom for a few days at least, despite the call having come in just over an hour ago. Being homeless. There was no hint. Okay. Here we go. Oh. Been about 15 years since the Willards just up and left, give it take a year. According to the report, they were the last known owners, and nobody's wanted the property since, Deputy Wright said, looking over his notes. There were still questions to be asked now that they finally gained access to the room, along with a victim to identify as... There were still questions to be asked now that they finally gained access to the room, along with a victim to identify and scene to unfold. The chief circled the body once more, careful not to track any blood or crush any of the strewn glass. Okay, there we go. Perfect. How y'all doing this evening? Hopefully you're liking the story so far. It's getting to the good part. I'll figure out what's happening. And then again, let me see if I could do this actually. Oh, I think it's gonna let me. If you would like to pick up a copy because you like what you hear and you want to check out the book itself, you can go to this link right here and pick it up. There you go. Perfect. All right. Okay, that looks like it's all working just good. Let's get back to the story. Glass. We were called for a domestic that was happening earlier tonight. Why? Glass. We were called for a domestic that was happening earlier tonight. Why does she look like she's been here a while? Nathan asked out loud, surveying the room. She looks a bit like a victim from the Wilmington case 3 years ago. Similar wounds. Young female. I don't think that is... Oh. Is that Nathan? Oh, it is. I don't know why that confused me for a second there. It almost sounded like the deputy for a second. So I was like, wait a minute. Do I have the right character? I usually, when I'm reading stuff out, I'll highlight the dialogue in a color for every character. So every character has their own color. So when I go through and I read, I don't make that mistake. I just had this feeling I was reading it wrong, but I wasn't. We were called for a domestic that was happening earlier tonight. Why does she look like she's been here a while? Nathan asked out loud, surveying. I don't like the way I said that anyways. Let's try that again. Class. We were called for a domestic that was happening earlier tonight. Why does she look like she's been here a while? Nathan asked out loud. I don't like that either. Let's try again. Glass. We were called for a domestic that was happening earlier tonight. Why does she look like she's been here a while? Nathan asked aloud, surveying the room. She looks a bit like a victim from the Wilmington case 3 years ago. Similar wounds. Young female. I don't know. A separate incident, Chief? One officer replied. Maybe we've got the makings of a serial killer, answered another. Guy brings victims out here 'cause it's secluded. The Wilmington victims were all blonde, though. Guy was never caught, Nathan said. So both are on the table as far as I'm concerned. But now I want more from our caller. Nathan radioed for the dispatcher that took the call. Dispatch, we get in touch with that RP yet? I've got a 1080 here that looks to be a day or two old, over. With his hand still hovering over his radio, he then asked the room, We got enough photos yet, or do I need someone else in here? The officer who had been taking photos, Ben Eriks, spoke up. I got enough to go off of. Just about 32 of this room, and... 32? You gonna have enough to get the second room at that rate? Nathan interrupted. That's Nathan again. I got enough to go off of. Just about 32 of this room, and 32? You gonna have enough to get the second room at that rate? Nathan interrupted with a light-hearted tone. Eriks reassured his chief. I've picked up everything out of the ordinary. Anything broken, anything too normal. Come on, computer. Reassured his chief. I've picked up everything out of the ordinary. Anything broken, anything too normal, too. Got wide shots from each corner as well, just not from inside the tub. I'll get everything, Chief. I'm sure you will. Keep it up, but just don't flash me, all right? The Chief's radio buzzed back. Chief Hargett, we still haven't reached the RP, but are calling out. The call isn't going through. Possibly a wrong number on our end. Still working on it. Just get me something. I want to know who reported this. None of that anonymous shit right now, and maybe write that number down this time, in case you can't draw it up. I've got it written down in my car. Oh, in case you can't draw it up, I have it written down in my car. In case you can't down this time. Down this time. In case you can't draw it up, I've got it written down in my car. 10-4, dispatch out. Looking about the bathroom, Nathan noted several items still on shelves, and many more scattered across the floor. Sure as hell made herself at home here. A vagabond with an interior decorator's heart. He gestured to several hair car I want to say hair car parts, and that's not even close to what's on the paper. It's hair care products. Let's try it again. He gestured to several hair care products, a small folded pile of colorful towels, and one that appeared to be used. He gestured to several hair care products, a small folded pile of Let's take a break. Let's talk about those times when you can't read a sentence out loud. Let's cool down this booth. A couple degrees too would probably help. Woo! It is cooking today. Wait until I fog up the glass. Hopefully you're liking the story so far. I put the links out there in chat just a little bit ago. If you like it so far and you want to pick yourself up a copy, please do so. And I believe it is the Barnes & Noble link that I have left in there as well. It's available on Amazon, but buy it direct from the author, or, buy it from Barnes & Noble. It's a better place to get it, if you can. Okay. Let's try this again. Reset. Gestured to... Okay. That's hot. He gestured to several... That's hot. He gestured to several hair care products, a small folded pile of colorful towels, and one that appeared to be used, hanging upon a rack, a few knickknacks about the floor, and a picture of presumably the victim on the counter, balancing halfway over a stopped-up sink. The image was saved from Water's Edge. The image was saved from the Water's Edge and looked over by Sergeant Al Baginski. Stepping around the exterior of the dark room, Baginski showed his chief the photo. Looks like it might be our victim, sir. Looks. What voice did I use for him? It's another thing that I usually do too, like if I'm gonna be doing the audiobook, right? I'll take a couple like sample lines for every character, at least all the main characters, and I'll record like a character accent file, and then if I come to a point like this where I'm like, what accent did I use? Like fairly early on, that'll happen a little bit because you like forget because you're not familiar with the characters yet as you go into the story. Then I'll just refer to that character accent like file, and then I can just go, oh, that's what they sounded like. So in this case, I don't have that, and he was back fairly far. So I'm going to do what I think I did, and if it's wrong, I can always go back after the stream and fix it. So not a big deal, but like if you're actually doing the audiobook, bad idea. That's why I always carry the character accent file. So and sometimes like the first time we introduce a character is when I'll record it, depending on who they are. Like if they're secondary or tertiary, I might not do it beforehand. I might do it when their first line comes up and then just save it then, so I can always refer to it. Just depends. Current book that I'm reading right now, it's a mystery thriller slash kind of romance-ish, but one of the gentlemen has a ton of kids, and 6 of them, all female, all the same age, show up at the exact same time. So for them, each first line of their dialogue I recorded, how I wanted them to sound, how I was going to differentiate between them based upon kind of some other context clues of how they might be as a character, which was kind of rough for some of them because some of them don't ever show up again in terms of dialogue. So, you got to kind of take your best guess off of one or two lines. But in that case, I'm coming up on the spot, but kind of rapid fire. And then I always have it to refer to just in case there's one little straggly line down at the, and Cindy says, the end, like right at the end or something. And then I can refer to, how they sounded like. But so, long story short, I would normally have a character accent file to refer to, but I don't, so I'm going to wing it. I think looks like it might be our victim, sir. I might have like just deepened it a little bit and then took off the accent a little bit. Let's try that. Photo. Looks like it might be our... That's really close to Nathan. Let's try that again. Photo. Looks like it might be our victim, sir, Baginski said. Got the same hair color, but I can't get much more from her current photo, Nathan responded. Guess it's good, Nathan responded. It's as good a guess as any right now. We get a photo of that photo, gentlemen? Oh, I think that's still Nathan. I thought it paragraph jumped, but it didn't. It's just how the sentence is displayed on this page. Responded. Nathan responded. It's as good a guess as any right now. We get a photo of that photo, gentlemen? Eric's commented. I got a shot out of the sink with the picture on it, and one up close of it. Nathan nodded his head with a smile. Looks like you boys don't even need me here. What about you, Deputy? What you got for me? Deputy Wright mindfully kept to the sides of the room, focusing his... Deputy Wright mindfully kept to the... Yeah, I said that word weird. Let's try that again. For me. Deputy Wright mindfully kept to the sides of the room, focusing his eyes everywhere except on the girl as he updated his chief. When we tried the door at first, it was locked. Thankfully, it was a simple enough lock that Eric's was able to utilize his credit card for something other than dining out. Popped it after a few seconds, but the door was jammed shut by a couple of wedges, and I mean they were in there. Get down to it, Deputy, Nathan interjected, nodding his head in a condescending manner. Let's make that more condescending. And I mean they were in there. In there. Get down to it, Deputy, Nathan interjected, nodding his head in a condescending manner. Charles paused as he looked down at the corpse. He swallowed forcefully to keep down his earlier snack of a Rice Krispie bar and a cola. Deputy Charles Wright, though an adept officer with thorough knowledge of the law, couldn't seem to get over his weak stomach for these types of gnarly sights, as rare as they were. He was able to power through gunshot victims, and stab wounds were easy enough, but he lacked the fortitude to stare at this particular young woman for too long. Something about her wounds made him feel ill. Eel, like an eel. Ill. Something... too long. Something about her wounds made him feel ill. That's what's tripping me up. But he lacked the fortitude to stare at this particular young woman for too long. Something about her wounds made him feel ill in a way he had not felt before. Regaining composure, he continued after a deep breath. The glass was covered a bit of the The glass was... The glass... I don't know why that repeated on me. Deep breath. The glass was covering a bit of the floor just in front of the doorway. No way to keep it from getting brushed to the side with our entry. Eric's got a photo before the whole thing was swung open. Outside of that, the room was untouched, just photos, Chief. A loud peal of thunder tore across the sky, brightening the darkened room just before the sound hit the house. The checkered tile flooring and faux wood paneling halfway up the wall was illuminated briefly enough to gauge that the bathroom was likely the best-looking and functioning room in the entire house. Somehow, it had remained intact, even with all the Somehow. Somehow, it had remained intact, even with all the trespassers that had been scared from the premises by officers over the years. Mid-20s, maybe, definitely from out of town. We won't know more till either some form of ID is found or fingerprinting gives us something. He's too stumbly. Make him a little bit more precise. Mid-20s, maybe, definitely from out of town. But we won't know more till either some form of ID is found or fingerprinting gives us something. The deputy stepped out into the hallway for a breath of air, albeit significantly more stale air. I say fresh air. Mid-20s, maybe, definitely from out of town. The deputy stepped out into the hallway for a breath of air, albeit significantly more stale air. Okay, I thought I said fresh for some reason. Stale air. Nathan slid a fresh pair of gloves on his hands. He crouched beside the victim as he began picking the brains of the other officers in the room. So, we've got a Jane Doe who, by the looks of it, dragged herself up those stairs, bleeding the entire way from... Trail seemed to come up from the living room, sir. Right. Note her fingers. Have a few bits of wood under the nails. It blends in with the blood, but there's some jagged pieces right there. I trust you got a shot of that, Eriks? The officer nodded, then leaned down for another shot of the victim's right hand, now carefully raised by the chief. That's all the angles, sir. Good. Now, what do you make of this? Peeling skin on the palms. Nathan turned the same hand for Eriks to see the injury more clearly. I got one from before, but just thought it was maybe worn skin from being dehydrated. Maybe her hand started to peel a bit. I got one from before, but just one from before. A little too unsure. I don't want to make him sound too incompetent. Clearly. I got one from before, but just thought it maybe... Clearly. I got one from before, but just thought it was maybe worn skin from being dehydrated. Maybe her hand started to peel a bit. Maybe. Lips are chapped, and she looks a little malnourished, but we'll only know after an autopsy. Let's see. Nathan studied the room while still beside the victim and continued. She found refuge in this particular room. Then it looks like she'd locked up and hunkered down. Her body seems to be tucked, though, like she was protecting herself from an assailant, even in here. Windows locked from the inside, yeah? In here. Windows locked from the inside, yeah? Al, who was Al, who was off in the corner, checked and gave confirmation that the window was still sealed. Nathan carefully brushed the woman's hair from her face, studying the marks that crossed her cheeks. Let me see that photo again. Let me see that photo again, he asked Baginski. Nathan compared her features to the image, attempting to see the woman without blood-streaked... Nathan compared her features to the image, attempting to see the woman without blood streaked across her medium light olive complexion. Though her skin had faded, he could see the resemblance in the picture. Can we get a few more of her face before the coroner gets here? He cleared the space for He cleared the space for Eriks to capture more photos, and mindfully stepped toward the lone dusty window in the bathroom. There was a small hole on the bathroom. On the bathroom? On the bottom. Dude. Bathroom. He cleared the space. He cleared the space for Eric's to capture more photos and mindfully stepped back toward the lone dusty window in the bathroom. There was a small hole in the bottom, near the center of the glass, that caught his eye. As he leaned down to study the damage, the flash from the camera just behind him lit the room again. While his attention was focused on the hole, the light from the camera bounced off the dark glass and blinded the chief for a moment. He closed and rubbed his eyes as the headache teased its presence in the back of his head once more. When he opened his eyes, he stared into the dark night, harshly changing the world just beyond the glass. He noticed something fluttering in the wind just beyond the glass, a loop of twine dangling from a bit of crooked and chipped glass outside of the hole. Something he couldn't quite make out clung to the end of it. "Anybody get a shot of this?" he asked. Al responded. "We did, but the window didn't budge. Don't have any tools to finagle that angle, so we left it out for now." "We did." Too unsure. Responded. "We did, but the window didn't budge. Don't have any tools to finagle that angle, so we left it for now." He gingerly unlocked the window and attempted to raise it. A small bit of brass twinkled outside the glass barrier as an officer shone his light on the... as a nearby officer. "We did, but the window didn't budge. Don't have any tools to finagle that angle, so we left it for now." He gingerly There we go. Ooh, it's cooking in here. That's why I usually wait till much later at night. Because otherwise, it'll cook. All right. Now, he gingerly unlocked the window in an attempt to raise it, and... He gingerly unlocked the window and attempted to raise it. A small bit of brass twinkled outside the glass barrier as a nearby officer shone his light on the edge. Now, he gingerly unlocked the window and attempted to raise it. A small bit of brass twinkled outside the glass barrier as a nearby officer shone his light on the ledge. The wood was worn from years of weather and was likely not. He gingerly unlocked the... But we left it for now. He gingerly unlocked... Okay, that's fine. And was not like... The wood... Ledge. The wood was worn from years of weather and was likely not opened until this very moment. The windowsill refused to give way to Nathan's efforts. It jerked and shifted from left to right before hopping an inch or two within its wooden frame. With just enough force, Nathan was able to pry the window open enough for him to reach through. He knelt upon the cool tile and stuck his right arm through the gap. The icy rain nipped at his hand and exposed skin around his wrist, while the rest of the sleeve soaked up the pooled moisture. He tapped the swaying string twice, but couldn't get a grip on the dancing rope. Despite his efforts, a gust of wind sent the object flying right off the crooked glass that... Despite his efforts, a gust of wind sent the object flying right off the crooked glass. Crooked. Dancing rope. Despite his efforts, a gust of wind sent the object flying right off the crooked glass that held it in place for however long it had called that home. He noted that the small brass object resembled a key as he pressed his face to the glass only to watch it soar out of sight down into the frigid puddles below. Damn it! With a window fogging huff, he pulled his arm back inside, both happy to be out of the rain, but... With a window fogging huff, he pulled his arm back inside, both happy to be out of the rain, but disappointed that he would likely have to retrieve whatever the object was from. Both happy to... inside, both happy to be out of the rain, but disappointed that he would likely have to retrieve whatever the object was from out on the battered lawn. Wright, Erickson, Baginski all looked to Nathan for confirmation. Lawn. Wright, Erickson, Baginski all looked to Nathan for confirmation as he stood up. Nope. Dropped it, whatever it was. Maybe a key? The excess moisture slapped the tile below as he shook his arm. Had a bit of a shine to it, tiny, but couldn't get a hold of the damn thing. He hesitated, considering if they would have... even a small chance to recover the potential piece of evidence while the storm pounded down. But, as if by cue, the sky gave Nathan his answer. The heavens roared... The heavens roared once again with another, more powerful crash of thunder that sent a tremor through the whole house. The storm's strength was undoubtedly more noticeable on the rickety second floor. Dancing lights filled both the world outside as well as the tiny room they found themselves within. In turn, they glanced out the large, rain-obscured window, watching the storm heighten in intensity every moment they spent inside that house. Check it quickly, but when I can't find it... I'll check it quickly, but when I can't find it, we'll send someone out tomorrow. Hell, I'm not going to find anything that small in this weather. We'll send someone out tomorrow. Hell, I'm not going to find... out tomorrow. Hell, I'm not going to find anything in that... out tomorrow. Hell, I'm not going to find anything that small in this weather. Nathan wrung out his utterly soaked sleeve while panning around the slightly crowded bathroom once more. So, where was I? The door was shut, locked, effectively barricaded from the inside. That window wasn't budging for me, so I'm going to go out on a limb here and say no one ducked out of this room after those chunks of wood sealed this door up tight. That gives us a pretty solid takeaway. Either she made it up here and bled out, or someone had an escape route through some weak boards. Wright, Erickson, Baginski rapped on the walls and stepped firmly upon each tile, revealing nothing of note beyond the obviously weathered age of the house. Nathan opened up the cabinet beneath the sink, but found nothing except a spare bottle of body soap and an old faded fabric doll. Charles investigated the door and its lock, but it was nothing more than a locked door that remained sealed from the time the young woman found her way inside until the officers entered. No trick and nothing hidden within the old door as far as he was able to tell. Charles curled and bit on his bottom lip in contemplation. She was hurt, likely to this condition, while either still downstairs or more so on her way up here. It is possible she got dragged up here, but it's too hard to tell if there's any bruising from an assailant. Nathan turned to him, hands in his pockets, and said, "Go ahead." Could have been dead and brought up here, but the amount of smeared blood on the floor leads me to think she was alive while in here. The door was slammed with enough force to crack the frame. Kinda hard to tell if that's... Crack the frame. Kinda hard to tell if that was us or the one on the other side of the door. Or her, I guess. Don't rule her out just because of how we found her. If she did drag her little self up those stairs in this state, she sure as hell had a decent fight left in her. I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that door against her, Nathan said. Charles nodded, looked over the frame around the door, and proceeded with his take on the crime scene. Well, the door splintered on both sides of the frame, so I believe it's possible the victim shut the door hard enough to do some decent damage to it. There are faint marks on the door on both sides. Could be nail marks from our victim. It might even be the cause of the splinters under her nails, but we'd have to check that. No paint from any polish on the door, and her nails are pretty faded and chipped. No signs of any weapon as of now, but all the marks along her skin. Gashes. Those ain't shallow, they're deep. Don't go misinforming the report with poor wording. Keep it clear and concise. Small or big is easy to distinguish, but someone reading the report might think marks are tiny, and you might not even be the one writing up the report. Make it clear from the start. Gashes. Got it. The gashes indicate something sharp. It was probably a thicker blade of some kind, and it's consistent across the whole body of the victim. Could have been a shovel with enough force, some metal scrap, or glass. The deputy bounced his light from shard to shard across the ground, searching for signs of a large enough piece of bloody glass as he moved about the bathroom. What are you thinking? What makeshift weapon is still in here? A little bit more direct. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? That the makeshift weapon is still in here? What's going through that head, Charlie? I think it's possible, don't you, Chief? I mean, the wounds could have been from a big enough piece of glass, right? I don't think there was enough blood on those stairs if she looked, well, like this. And with all the glass around, just might be a shard large enough to cause these deep gashes. Nathan began walking toward the doorway as he said, Tell you what, since you got this covered, I'm handing this one over to you. I'm gonna... Wait, are you leaving? Charles interrupted. Maybe not as hesitant. Wait, are you leaving? Charles interrupted. With a hand raised, Nathan said, I'm handing it over to you, because you're on a roll, and I want you to keep that going. My head's killing me, and you've handled seeds similar to this one. Got a burp. Woo, let's cool it down in here for a quick second, too. I cut off this line. Wait, are you leaving? Wait, are you leaving? And that single feature, I don't know if you saw that. So when I punched back in, I actually started talking before it actually started recording. But there's a feature in Studio One that actually starts recording like a couple of seconds, maybe like a full second before you actually start, before you hit the record button. So it's always got like kind of like a little buffer, if you will, in the front. So if you do that and you jump in too early, you can just drag it over and restore that little bit instead of having to redo the whole thing, which is awesome. Like, it saves you takes. It saves me tons of takes. My head's killing me. Okay. My head's killing me. Going. My head's killing me, and you've handled scenes similar to this before just fine. I'm tired. You got this, so I'm going. A rough cough and clearing of the throat gave pause to his departing words. I'm gonna check quick for that thing on a string, and if it ain't out there right outside this window, you can have someone come check. And if it... on a string. And if it ain't out there right outside this window, you can have someone come check at dawn when the weather breaks. There was a moment of silence as Nathan looked over the victim one last time, followed by his deputy. There was a moment of silence as Nathan looked over the victim one last time, followed by his deputy. Charles stood still, biting his lip with a look of uncertainty upon his shadow-obscured face. A bolt of lightning lit the room up, enough to show some unease in the deputy's eyes as he gazed on the body lying motionless, in a stagnant pool of her own blood. It might have been the lightning. It might have been the lightning, mixed with the stress from the day, culminating in the beginning stages of a migraine, but as the light flashed through the bathroom, the deputy's face still seemed shaded, enveloped in the darkness that filled the room. Darkness that seemed to paint the walls of the old Willard estate and follow the officers everywhere they went. Nathan rubbed his eyes, and all was right again as he set his sights back upon the deputy. The chief's head began pulsing, and he knew it was time for his search to be underway and his leave to arrive that much sooner. He cleared his throat once more and said to the He cleared his throat once more and said to his deputy, "You got this, right? You've been with me long enough that I'm not handing this scene over to a shit-ass rookie, am I?" "No, sir. Take off. I got this one, Nate." The two nodded. Nathan gave a brief, laxed wave to the other two officers in the room. Then, with a cursory hand on his deputy's shoulder and a somewhat half-hearted smile, he took his leave. Though he had stepped out of the washroom, he had no intention of abruptly walking away from the crime scene. Though he had stepped out of the washroom, he had no intention of abruptly walking away from the crime scene. His vigilant eyes, trained over the decades to fixate on various objects and environmental cues, still actively worked the area, even on his way out. Only a few steps out of the bathroom, he thought he saw movement out of the corner of his eye coming from a spare room. He stepped into the room with his flashlight heading He stepped into the room with his flashlight highlighting a few pieces. He stepped into the room with his flashlight highlighting a few pieces. I think it's because I can hear the breath noises bother me, subconsciously. He stepped into the room with his flashlight highlighting the few pieces of furniture left that were pushed against the walls. Nathan assumed it used to be a bedroom, though the bed was long gone. The rain smacked on the windows. The rain smacking on the windows was the only movement he could see apart from the shadows that danced when the lightning came. Just shadows, he thought. Just shadows, he thought. Make that more ominous. All right, I get cut. Rain smacking. Long gone. The rain smacking on the window. Gone. The rain smacking on the windows was the only movement he could see apart from the shadows that danced when the lightning came. Just shadows, he thought. Boom. Chapter 1 done. Alrighty, let me give this a good save. And then we're going to export this bad mamba jamba. Maybe. Computer's like chugging today. I think this is really, really warm today, right now, in this garage. So the warmer computers get, the less optimally they run. And it's doing quite a bit too. It's like streaming and also recording and all that kind of good stuff. So she's an old girl, this laptop. So gotta give her a little leeway, right? All right, I'm going to export it as a WAV file. And it looks like it came to raw 31 minutes 53 3 seconds. Pretty good first chapter. Pretty good length there. So that should be done here in a few minutes. And we don't have to wait for that. So what I'm going to do is get this all scooting up to the desk upstairs. I'll meet you there in just a second. And we'll talk for a little bit more. And then we'll go from there. All right, so let me... Oh, it looks like we're in an ad break on Twitch too, so my apologies. I couldn't hear it today. Sound wasn't working on the stream, so... Anyways, I'm going to transfer us all back over to the upstairs. I'm going to run up there real quick, and I'll meet you there in just a few minutes. Alrighty. And I am back, and my camera is off, and it looks like I surprised Cory because he is still there. Hi! Welcome back. There we go. Camera's back on. All right. The read is over. It has been recorded. So now, all that's left to do is master that bad mamba jamba. Go through, make sure there's, no mistakes, proof it one more time, and then go through and master it. So what that process basically looks like is I have like a whole kind of chain of things that I do when I'm doing it. Now I usually work with like an editor, like you would, with a writing editor, but same thing for the audio. It just saves me time. They'll do all the editing and I can just start recording the next book. Actually, I don't know if Hearthside Gaming is still here, but he's the one that actually gave me the editor, so he's the same editor person, and he is fantastic. But basically, they roughly do the same thing. First, we go through and like clean up the like noise kind of in the recording. So if there's any noise floor, which there's very little inside the booth, thankfully, saves a lot of processing time that way, right? Because you have a quiet environment to record in. And then clean it for any mouth noise, stuff like that. Then we go through and do a general equalization and EQ on it to enhance the audio in whichever way we want. So depending on your microphone and the room that you're in, the EQ will be different per voice as well, what you want to accentuate and what the microphone's picking up. Then you do a compression pass. So compression is basically where you take all the loud stuff and you make it quieter, and all the quiet stuff and you make it louder, and you kind of even that signal out. Usually on a voice signal, it's going to be a 2-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio, if that makes sense to anybody. If not, just, nerd speak, bear with me. After the compression is done, then you'll do usually kind of like a normalization gain. So you're bringing everything up to a like a height, standard height, right? Like or a maximum height. So if you're doing stuff for Audible, ACX Audible, the highest peak in your volume total, what you'd normalize to is -3. I usually do -3.1 because it just gives you a little bit of headroom. And then as long as everything is within a range, and it should be, of negative, I think it's 18 to -23 dB in terms of loudness. Average. So it's like the perceived loudness. You know how certain things can be
quieter or louder technically, but they sound like they're at a certain volume. That's kind of what that means. So like the average perceived volume has to be within that range. As long as all those things match, that is audiobook standards, the basic bare minimum that like Audible would accept. And that's kind of, there's little nuances here or there in terms of technicalities for different platforms. But if you meet those criteria, you're good. So that's usually kind of what I do in terms of getting in there and mastering it and doing all that fun stuff. So if you were ever curious, now you know that's what goes into after you're done recording and you've fixed all your mistakes and your editor has gotten back to you and said you've missed the word a and the 40 times. So, you know, that stuff. The stuff that your brain just goes, that doesn't matter, and it skips over it. Like you probably heard me do a ton of times just now. But
the common words that you just ignore here and there.
Oh yeah,
They're
it's
flavor
weird.
text. You don't need it.
Yeah, it's not important. It's weird. Like your brain does this thing where it'll, like subconsciously, it just cuts words or adds words. That happens to be sometimes too. You'll be reading something and I'll add a word and I'm like, that word wasn't there. Why did I say that? But your brain's like, no, that's the next word coming. That's obviously going to be on the page, and you just read it even though it's not there to read. It's like the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was the whole thing. So I'll clean that up, do all those things that I just mentioned, and then I'll send it off to you. And you can use it if you'd like.
That is awesome. I will absolutely use that. I will throw it onto all my social medias. Obviously give you the shout out because you did like all of it, clearly. I wrote the words, but the words don't mean anything to a blind man. Like your voice is what's giving it that life.
For sure. They have to be good words to start with, though. I'll tell you that.
I appreciate it. Keep me humble.
They have to be good words to start with, and they are. So, I think a lot of people I've been seeing, at least lately, have been doing like and I'll cut it up for you too. I'll give you like the full chunk and then like a 5-minute chunk, because I've been seeing a lot of people on social media, for you writers out there. They've been doing like little 5-minute like snippets, 2 to 5 minute snippets with like their book cover or something kind of in the background. Instead of having music, they'll have like the narration going to kind of introduce their book or whatever. I see it a lot more for like, you know, the actual audiobooks or whatever, but sometimes I've been seeing like, you know, the authors reading their own thing and like putting like little snips like that up there. So food for thought for things that you can put up on your social media stuff to use it with. But I just recently saw a couple people doing that, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've seen it like a bunch of different ways with people like using like audio snippets, and I have no idea like what works and what doesn't in terms of that, because every time I hear it, I'm just intrigued to like get like that part of the story wherever it is and for whatever story it is, especially if it's like a quality narrator.
Yeah. Right. No,
Which side? You're on that side.
It's kind of interesting. Yeah. What side am I? This side. It's interesting in that, and I like it and I don't like it. So, and they may be reverting this. So Audible at one point in time, up actually until fairly recently, allowed you to pick, if you're going to do an audiobook, they allowed you to pick what section was the sample of your audiobook. So you could go through and pick like, oh, this is a really exciting portion of it, or I think this introduces the story the best in terms of, you know, where, take a 5-minute chunk from anywhere and put that as your sample. So when you go to look for an audiobook you want to listen to and you click sample, that's what you hear. That used to be from anywhere, your choice, dealer's choice, right? Now,
that's the way it should be.
Right, that's the way it should be. Now it's the first 5 minutes. It'll always be the first 5 minutes from now on, which I don't like. Sometimes that is a good area to start with. A lot of times it's not, though. Like that's not like the best way to like give you a good impression of the book or entice somebody to want to know more, right? Right? It's just like the random first 5 minutes could be good or bad. Like I just hate not being able to have the choice, you know?
Yeah, the choice is definitely something that should go to the author slash narrator, whoever's in charge of that. But
Rights holder.
I do
yeah.
know that for like publishers that want to buy something,
Mhm.
the major heads will never see something that can't get past the most interesting, like first, I think it's 5 pages of a manuscript.
Yeah.
That is like the make or the break. If you do not have something that's catching immediate attention in those certain pages, or like in a couple of minutes, like 5 minutes,
Mhm.
they just throw it out. They say, no, we're not interested, or they just don't care, or they're like, hey, clean it up a little bit and we can maybe work with this. But yeah, that's like supposed to be the most important part. So it's like, if you have this hit the ground running, we
Mhm.
got something. But yeah, like for certain things, especially in like a thriller genre or a
Mhm.
romance, it may not start going until like a few chapters in, but you
Right.
know that you have to build up to that.
Yeah, there's a whole like kind of
Just-
subgenre of, especially like romance. There's like cozy romance where that's the
Yeah.
whole point, to build to that part that you're there for, right? And within kind of just the genre in itself, it's not going to, for the most part, probably a few exceptions, it's not going to hit you right away with the main concept of the romance, right?
Mhm.
Because you want to read the book to get into that. That's the whole point of telling the story. So the part that people want to hear that would draw them into it would probably be closer to that middle section, and you'd want to take a section from there to be able to,
Yeah.
to showcase that, to entice the person that's there for that genre specifically to get that book. So it's, I don't know, I don't really like it overall. It does make it easier in terms of, well, the sample's always going to be the first 5 minutes, you know, but it's like, it's one of those things,
What if you're
right?
reading a word and like at the 5 minute just cuts it? And he walked into
Yep. That's exactly it. Yeah.
the door? He
It'll
walked
just,
into the
it'll
dining
just
hall?
cut it. Yep. It'll just cut it. Well, I mean, usually like when I'm making the sample though, I'll make sure that like, if it's going to cut right at 5 minutes, I'll slide it over. So you at least get the sentence. So it might be a little earlier than 5 minutes by, you know, a second or two, if that's going to be the case. Cause you get to, at least for now, you have to submit that file. So you make the first 5 minutes, but then what happens is, if you buy the audiobook and you've listened to the sample, it resumes from
Oh,
that same point within that first chapter, if that makes sense.
I think that
So,
would annoy me.
yeah,
Like if I'm
even though
diving
it's
straight
separate
into it.
files, it catches up to like where it would be within that file, which sometimes there's like, I've noticed, and maybe it's just me and my device and it's a freak circumstance, but I've noticed there's a little time skip, right? Like where you miss a couple words and then you gotta go back. It's just annoying, right? Like, can we just not do that? Can we just not do that? I don't know.
Novel
I guess I'm
idea.
just griping.
Allow them to choose the part that they want within a 5 minute time
Right.
frame. Genius.
Who would have thought?
Not me.
Why did all of my audio just cut? I hear nothing.
Oh dear. Hello?
I guess I don't need to, huh? Why did my audio just cut? Hold on.
I guess it's just me alone.
I didn't have enough technical difficulties, that's why.
I'll serenade the audience
now
with
I can
sweet
hear you.
siren songs of indie rock. Oh no, we're
Indie
back.
rock. Okay. All right. Cool. I caught the tail end of that. I'm here for it. And go.
Oh no, absolutely not. My guitar's in the other room. I'm not busting that out. My wife's asleep. The cats will get crazy. Not
I mean,
happening.
what a good way to wake up.
Oh yeah, as long as the song is something she likes.
True. Alrighty. Real quick, looks like a couple of shout outs to Alan and Bill the Duck. Thank you very much, sir, for dropping by. And you dropped in. That's who else it was that dropped in and said something. You dropped in on your Twitch account. Again, then, real quick, that's a good segue into follow Mr. Cory Laniewski's Twitch channel as well. He does some twitching of his own, goes through kind of his writing stuff. For what's your schedule? When do you usually stream?
It is every Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, awesome. 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Thursday if you want to catch him creating the whole thing from, I guess, wherever he left off last time, right?
Yep.
Maybe the
Every
beginning
single
of it,
session
Yeah,
is
sure,
right
sure.
there.
There you go. And do you transfer it to like a YouTube channel so they can watch the stuff in the past, or?
Yes, I actually
Okay.
completely forgot about that, but it's under Laniewski Literature as well. Um, and all of those videos, because I'm still understanding how Twitch works, they will get transferred over there.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I have like a highlight and I have the actual video, both of which are the exact same time frame. Because when I finish, it's around like
Mhm.
9:30, 10 o'clock. That is my bedtime. I am going to sleep. I'm just sitting there, groggy, looking at the computer, being like, please finish uploading. As soon as it does,
Mhm.
shut it, forget about it, come back the next week, and I'm like, oh, I have to make sure everything's up and running again.
Right.
So
That's the way to
you'll
do
be
it.
able to find two of the exact same video. One is a highlight, one is a video, and you can watch them simultaneously. I promise nothing changes in either.
It's interesting. I wonder why it does that. That's awesome, though.
It Not a clue, but I know that Twitch does delete videos after a certain
It
period of time
they
unless you create a highlight,
yeah.
but it still deleted some of my videos
Hmm.
and I don't know why. I think my very first one is deleted.
It'll
Not a
still
clue.
delete them after a period of time, anyways, because it depends on like your I don't know what word to use, like partnership level, right? So there's like
Mhm.
affiliate, there's partner. Depending on which one of those you are, is how long they'll maintain your videos for. And
Mhm.
I believe, could be wrong, each one has a cutoff. So at like 60 days, let's say, they're going to start deleting those videos anyways. So for all of you that are getting into streaming, back up your videos to your YouTube channel that does not do that.
Take notes.
There's a little, there's a setting, I believe, that's in your Twitch settings that'll transfer it over if you hook them up to each other. So
Yep, and it
take
is a
full
fairly
advantage.
simple process. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard from what I remember. It was a while ago now, but I don't remember it being super complicated or anything. So, yeah, all the technicalities and stuff of streaming, fun, huh?
Yeah, the fancy stuff that no one ever sees. And
Right.
mine aren't even like that crazy high quality. I'm using a camera I did for like business, like streaming and stuff. Same thing with like the headphones. And it's nothing crazy fancy. There's people that are putting millions of dollars into like their stuff because they have that big of a following.
Well,
And
yeah,
here I am with like tiny webcam,
that's all you need. That's all you
microphone.
need. So
It
I think there's
works
like,
for the purposes I have.
yeah, I think that's a big misconception too that I've seen, and I've talked to actually some narrators about, if they have permission, always get that to live stream some of the stuff that they're working on, to kind of build up that community and social media kind of following. And the misconception is they have to have all this expensive stuff to get started. Like, no, you don't. Like, get yourself like a $20 headset and a $30 webcam, and there you go. And you don't even need the webcam if you don't want. There's ways you can get around that. Although I would say, as probably a narrator, your voice is probably the most important thing, but secondly, maybe this thing. So up to you, I
Yeah.
guess. But point being, your setup doesn't have to be super expensive. Like, I happen to have some nice stuff through other things that I've done in the past and that I like to do. So like the microphone it's a really nice microphone, but I used to have a production company. That's where this came from, because I didn't throw it away or sell it. I just happened to have it, and I'm like, oh, I'll hook it up, right? And then the camera, I like, taking families of photos and stuff, so it's the same camera I use for that, right? So you can dual purpose stuff. You can figure it out. You can even use your cell phone now. Like when
Oh,
I
yeah.
was when you saw me recording in the booth, that was my cell phone that I hooked everything up to. There's a little device. The only one that used to exist on the market was called the iRig, and it was specifically marketed towards iPhones. There are generic ones that you can get on Amazon now, and all it's a USB cord on one side, and that goes USB-C, and that goes into the bottom of your cell phone, right? And then they make the older Lightning port models too, depending on the age of your phone, right? And then there's a 1/4-inch cable that can go into the jack of your audio interface that you probably have because you have a microphone you're recording into for your audiobooks, right? So stuff you already have. You just got to buy a cable, the other little doohickey, and then there's like a port for a headphone, like a earbud thing. So you can just pop an earbud in, and now you can hear what everybody else is going to hear, and you can stream from your phone, your microphone, and now you have a webcam at the same time. So you probably already have the device to get you started to stream and start sharing your stuff with a live audience, whether that be on TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, like we're doing now with the new writing and reading category, or YouTube, even YouTube. So trying to get it out there. Trying to get it out there. Let's bash those misconceptions. You have to have billions of dollars to. I mean, hey, if you're making millions of dollars,
it
might
helps.
as well upgrade. Yeah, it helps. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have some high quality stuff, better than what we have, but you don't need it. I don't think you need it. Just got to get started.
No. You hit the ground running with what you got, and you make it work. If you can make that work, you can make the expensive stuff work a little bit better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's too, like, another hesitation for some people. I'm on like this soapbox, but I'm just going to roll with it. I think the hesitation too for a lot of people, especially is no matter if you're narrating or not, is like getting in front of a camera and talking to somebody. I think a lot of people get nervous about that. And then especially with narrating, like when you mess up, everybody sees that. Well, yeah, but nobody expects you to be perfect. Like, it's that realization that every audiobook you listen to, there's hundreds of mistakes in there. You'll never hear them.
Probably hours
They'll
worth.
get fixed. Yeah.
And they just cut it. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, we just witnessed me not being able to say 2 words in a row. As apparently, feel ill is difficult. I don't know why. I don't know.
Throwing the same letters together, and it's becoming a problem.
Right. Yeah. But
I think I commented those on the Instagram as like they popped up. I mean, like, yes.
Right.
That's exactly what I meant.
Right.
The hair care products is like hair car products.
Yeah, the hair care products. I don't know why. I'm like, why does my brain want to say that? Like, it's obviously care. I can read it, but my brain wants to go, no, say car. No, don't say car. That's not the word. I love it. I love it. The inside view of the weird mess ups that you'll never hear. Usually, you'll just get
unless you're watching a live stream on Twitch, on Instagram, on YouTube after the fact. Go see his channel because that's where you'll find all of the mistakes you will hear nowhere else.
All the mistakes. They're all in there, raw, real, for you to see the behind the scenes take on how
it's better that way.
Bad
it's real.
Be. Yeah. I usually run on the channel. It's funny, a flub counter. So if you're on Twitch or you're on YouTube, you can type in exclamation point flub, and it'll keep a count of how many times I messed up. One of my good friends who likes to come in and moderate for me sometimes on the channel turns that into a drinking game. I will just say drink responsibly because
drink water.
You just heard. It happens a lot.
Hydrate properly.
Hydrate. And switch early. Nobody will judge. Be careful with that.
I need to include like hair care products in every single book
I
make.
There you go. And
to just like make you a little wary as you're reading through. It's like, I can't say that out loud.
Oh, no. Yeah, just write a story about a beautician. Like, I can't read any of it.
The hair care product aisle. Oh, God.
No. Yeah, she's a beautician that works in the health and beauty section in a retail store. That's her second.
Has to be described every chapter. 42 chapters. It's going to get rough.
Right. Right.
It is not a short story. It's more than 100 words.
Yeah, well, I see what you did there. Call back to earlier. As a callback to earlier too, let me put this out here one more time before we go. If you would like to pick up a copy of the book that you just heard, there's a link to it. And that's the place. That's the best place to go to get it. Go to Barnes & Noble. Don't get it from Amazon. I mean, if you have to, but
it is available on Amazon, and I will not deter people from going there. Buy within your means. The book is $18.99, and I prefer Barnes & Noble because I think they're a little bit more reputable of a company. My personal opinion, I'm not making any business statements, but as for Amazon, it is far cheaper, and you can get it through Amazon. I buy my book in person if I can at a store or at a library. So if you can go to a library or a store, you request that, 9 out of 10 times they will try to get it for you. They'll bring it in and it'll be available, or you'll just tell them what your address is. They get it, they ship it straight to you. And it's as simple as that. So however you find books, like, go out and support local. I'm always going to pound that into people's heads, because local is your town's lifeblood. It's your city that you love to visit.
Yeah.
For us Pennsylvanians, people love Pittsburgh, people love Philadelphia. You go to those towns, you support those small businesses, that area thrives. You stop shopping there and you start going online, you start seeing closed signs everywhere.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you can get them online. By all means,
Mhm.
do that if it works for you, if it's convenient. If you have the ability to go to a store, library, bookstore, like, do that too.
Absolutely.
Like,
Now, I'm glad you
find
brought
it
that up
wherever.
too. A lot of people I don't think know that you can request them to get you a book that you want, and they'll do it, because they'll
Yeah,
probably sell others, or, if it's library, they'll have it in stock there. So might as well. No, that's a really good point.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on the stream and doing this. The very first time that I have ever done, I think you two done the stream together thing. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun. I like that, like, perspective of author and then immediately narrating it, like, right after. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool. I hope
Yeah.
you enjoyed it as well. Uh,
Oh, I
and
did. I
hopefully,
wouldn't have stuck around to the end if I didn't
right,
enjoy it. This is
true,
awesome.
true. It is late. It is late. You should go to bed, get some sleep. I'm gonna go narrate some more
Love you.
after this. But thank you so much for jumping on. We'll have to definitely do this again sometime. So,
Thank you as well.
for sure, for sure. Now, we're not going to do another ad break. I'm going to skip that because we're going to go raid somebody there in Twitch. If you're on Instagram, thank you so much for joining me live. I do appreciate it. And thanks for asking questions earlier, too, for those of you that asked the question. You took advantage of having Cory here and be able to ask questions about the book. So that's awesome. Check out the link down there below if you want to pick up yourself a copy. I can't speak anymore. A copy if you liked what you heard so far. And we're going to cut it and say, I'll bid you adieu on Instagram. We'll see you next time. Probably next Monday, 6 p.m. PST for Macabre Monday, where we're going to read some short horror fiction. That'll go up live on a couple of different podcasts. We'll talk about that more next Monday, so tune into that if you're interested. Followed by another Whiskey Wednesday on next Wednesday at 6 p.m. PST. This one was a special one, so we started early. And thank you so much, Cory, for agreeing to meet me. Go on the stream. But we'll see you later there on Instagram. Bye-bye. And now on YouTube's, I have to do the same thing for you all, too. Check out the link below. Buy the book if you want it. We'll talk to you all later as well. Bye-bye. And now, Twitch, look,